What is happening out there, Rotoscouts baseball fans? Good to see you, gang. Happy Friday. As usual, our buddy Joker just hopped up and ran out of the room. I don't think I even hit that one that hard. Felt like that was a nice tame, like, hello, hey, how are you? Good to get the show started. A couple minutes late. Apologies to keep you guys waiting. Just was updating some lineups. Wanted to grab the stacks board so we could discuss it, go through some stuff. 10-gamer today. Really, really interesting slate. Looking forward to talking this one through with you guys. I dropped in, as I was working on it earlier today, I dropped the stacks board for today into Discord because I thought it was a great illustration of something that I talk about a lot, which is parsing our stack rankings and just stack rankings in general. When you're talking about like the average fantasy points scored across a lineup, when you're talking about probabilities, particularly with baseball and you know, focused on what we're talking about here with baseball, those can be such thin margins. And today I put the top 13 teams in as I was working on the stacks board as they were ranked, and they changed as I was, you know, moving things around and making sure everything was just reflecting the right opportunities. I also worked in a bunch of back end updates today, and I'm going to be doing that through the weekend. But team number 1 to team number 13 in terms of the average fantasy point total across the 9-man lineup was a difference of about a quarter of a fantasy point, 0.25. Like, not gigantic. Obviously, some lineups are better than others, but it's, you know, the reason I bring it up is because we're going to be looking at the stacks board in a minute, for one, and it just illustrates the point of why it's important to talk about who these guys really are across a large sample in these different situations, the way that we do every single day. So I really, really wanted to, you know, drop that into Discord and bring it up as we start the show here, because it's an incredibly, more so than a lot of days, it is an incredibly tight board from, let's say, the teams that are in green to yellow here, from 1 to 11. You could arguably lose it a little bit around St. Louis and Boston, although both teams are presenting good value marks on DraftKings. They're also at better Vegas totals slightly than my projections have them measuring out. And again, the same thing's true about the Vegas totals. You're talking about, you know, less than a full run, mostly like a half a run between like here on the board and here on the board. And particularly up here, all of these teams are essentially between 1.83 and 5 point whatever it is for the Twins, who are leading the board but not leading the stacks board entirely. It's a really interesting one. So again, a lot of tight action. You can see how teams are tied in certain spots. The Dodgers and the White Sox deadlocked at second by projections, but neither team showing great points per dollar value. Two very expensive options. Dodgers are just the Dodgers. They're difficult to suppress, but out of all those teams at the top, they're going against the best pitcher. Sean Manaea, easily the best out of that group up at the top. The Marlins are drawing the number 1 spot on DraftKings. They're 4th on FanDuel. That's a little bit of a reflection of the home run difference. And again, the literally like hundredths of a point on both sites that are separating those top 4 or 5 teams in fantasy point aggregation. So just know that that is a collection of same, but with variants of opportunity around the home run ball, around the matchup with the pitchers that we'll dig into, and then around the value marks. You can see the top 3 teams are all, despite being very different and going about it differently, grading out differently for power, they're deadlocked at 6 across the top 3, teams 1, 2, and 4 as ranked on FanDuel, because again, the Marlins slip a little bit against that 11th ranked home run spot. But the Marlins are the source of today's home run pick of the day. I love the power upside for several of those bats. So we're going to dig into that, and they could easily outpace that scoring. And again, this is the difference of like 5/100ths of a point between 4th and 3rd here. So just bear that in mind. A lot of back and forth across those games. Pick your poison, pick your favorite spot. I will say that I think not so far this year, but somewhere in there, Jacob Lopez is a better, more talented pitcher than his results have been so far this season. I'm very excited to use the Marlins to target Emron Marquez and Randy Vasquez, who are going to be doing another piggyback start by all accounts. Either way, those guys project out almost exactly the same. When you switch them back and forth in that game, I'll show you guys. There's essentially Absorb where the Marlins are here with Edman Marquez on the mound. All right, solid power numbers. The power's a little bit different. This is the only thing that's really going to change. It's going to come down slightly when I change it to Randy Vasquez. These numbers are going to stay like exactly the same. These are the points and value numbers. See that? The home run numbers came down slightly, and these are exactly the same between those two guys. Plenty of opportunity available against either pitcher. Love the spot for the Marlins. And my hope is that, they slip maybe slightly on other sites around a little bit of a dip in power across some of those bats, some, lesser than guys a little bit down the lineup. They're 5th by Vegas total, so maybe they're not quite as popular. Good value spot, though, so I would expect they're going to get picked up pretty aggressively. It's a really interesting one for some of those reasons. Travis Duarte, what's going on? Travis is saying, man, I'm putting Conine in then. I like Griff Conine today. I like that spot quite a bit. I am telling you that the Marlins are up top today. Chris Horger likes the A's lefties. Yeah, that spot for the A's is looking pretty juicy to me. 3rd ranked by home run value. They're only 8th by Vegas total, but again, it's such a logjam of same across those Vegas totals. We'll pull up the runs board in a sec. But that was a good call out. They also land 4th by value against a 6th ranked DraftKings, 3rd by value on FanDuel against a 5th ranked. And then the Orioles are also showing a little bit of friskiness on value and home run upside. They're going up against a very gettable Grant Holmes. So I don't want that to be a forgotten spot. And I think they'll show their heads a little bit around some of those quality bats in that lineup. I think the Mets could potentially be interesting. They don't grade out quite as well by value as those other two teams. They don't grade out quite as well as points, but their points are a little better than the Vegas total might expect. And that's because they're facing the very up and down, but incredibly susceptible to power Roki Sasaki. Solid mid-board type projection, but showing a lot of power upside across that deep 9-man lineup that the Mets bring to bear. Yeah, they've been bad, but there's plenty of potential there. I think the Pods could potentially be sneaky. And then we slow down around these spots where we start facing some of the better pitchers like Trevor Rogers, Rhett Lauder. Either of those guys could get through these starts, but either of these teams could beat those guys. That's why I said before, Atlanta, St. Louis in the middle of the board, kind of, I think, appropriately placed. Not necessarily go-to teams, but very, very usable. You'll note the Red Sox are the lowest ranked team in defiance of their the team that bounces off their Vegas total at the lowest point. Let's put that. 7th ranked by Vegas. They're showing plenty of value on DraftKings as the number 7 overall. But just like we talked about the other day when they were facing Kyle Bradish, they're just going up against a good pitcher. Trey Yesovich hasn't been on point through most of the season, but he does have the knack for suppressing power when he's going right, and he is incredibly good when he gets things situated. And I just continue to think that Boston team is getting a little bit more credit than they deserve in Vegas, trying to hook some people in on that run line. And they're just a little overrated for that hot streak they were on. They went out that game, faced off against Bradish. I think they got shut out that night. Not that there's anything, of course, predictive about that, but it's just a little bit of a reflection of they were coming into that game with like a 4.85 implied total. And I'm saying that's easily half a run too high against Bradish. He's good. I think Savage is probably even more talented in the long run. We'll see how it works out. He's very right at the beginning of his career. But we saw it down the stretch throughout last year into the playoffs. So I don't love the Red Sox here. Perfectly fine to use, middle of the board, across the board. But 19th by homers, kind of ranking lower than the projections. 2 bats that we really, really want in that lineup, and then a lot of back and forth or overperformers. We'll get into it. Blue Jays look interesting by value, but the quality comes and goes. They're facing off against a gettable Patrick Sandoval. And then you start really hitting the bumpier parts of the board. Dustin May is an interesting one with the way that some of those red stars could end up getting there, but they really don't rank out well by Vegas total. They actually rank better on our board than they do for Vegas. May has been all over the place, particularly since his one hitter that he threw like 6 starts back. He's been a mess since then. He's had one okay outing, and the rest have been a disaster. Looking at it on the runs board, you can see some of the standout spots shining through. The Giants at the end of the night, interesting late night hammer type spot. We go all these games up to St. Louis, and then we wait for San Fran to come through at the end of the night. 5-1-6 implied for the Twins, who you saw up there near the top of the board. 4-8-3 implied for the White Sox, who you saw near the top of the board. The Dodgers, 4-8-1. The Marlins, 4-8-1. 4.65 going toward the Orioles, who I just talked about as an interesting, potential value play with some home run upside. You can see how tight this board is, no, guys? I mean, look how many, there's four teams between 4.81 and 4.83, 4.82.5, or 4.83.4. It's ludicrously tight. So again, on nights like this, you have to look at these Vegas totals and really consider, all right, who are these guys facing? What's the nature of that matchup really like? Who are these guys really versus what are they doing in the short term that's going to get buzzy in Vegas around some different spots or in people's lineups? So really interesting for that. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as we get started breaking down the runs board here. That first one up, Braves and the O's, Grant Holmes, Trevor Rogers. Grant Holmes, every now and again, breaks off a decent start, 3.70 ERA, but an underlying xFIP 4.68, almost a full run higher. Not a great strikeout option. Guy I'm perfectly willing to throw some frisky O's bats at. And then Trevor Rogers pitching to a 4.28 ERA, but a 4.56 xFIP under the surface. Not really finding the strikeouts this year. I think he's just as gettable with Braves bats coming in at mid-4s implied total. Kind of like what we've been talking about all week with the Braves too. The hope there would be that, against this kind of a board, maybe they just get a little bit forgotten against a pitcher that, is good and people definitely have a healthy enough respect for. Downside for the Braves, no Ronnie Acuna comeback tonight. At least one more day for Acuna. Not sure. I didn't get a chance to dig into the news. I noticed it just as I was doing the pre-show update there, but he's not in the lineup today. Still a very effective, very high-end Braves lineup to throw at Rogers there. Cleveland against Tampa Bay, two of the lower-end spots for offense is Joey Cantillo against Shane McClanahan, two of the more highly projected starters. McClanahan doing a little bit more damage to the Guardians implied total at 3.35, but Joey Cantillo suppressing that Rays team, 3.73. They were all the way down toward the bottom of the board. That top-heavy lineup, when it gets knocked down under 4 runs, can really fall down the board very, very quickly. I think they're still dangerous. They could get to Cantillo for sure, but it would mostly come through those stars up at the top, and then you're just guessing your way through that bottom end of the lineup on a night where they don't look good in a 7-run game. The Pods and the Marlins, again, the Marlins look great against that combination. It's Edman Marquez definitely to start the game, and the last time out, he went a short start. He went 3 innings, and then Randy Velasquez came in, and they're in line to do that. Word is that's what they're doing tonight. I listed Randy Velasquez as a likely bulk reliever. I just want to make sure that we're accounting for the fact that we're not necessarily 100% guaranteed he's coming into the game. But I gave them each like 3.5 innings. Neither one of those guys on the mound. They're just targets for Marlins bats. I think Miami looks great today. And then don't sleep on the Pods on the other side of that game. That is an interesting spot for Padres bats. They're going up against Ryan Gusto, who has not been good. 4.70 ERA, a 4.53 xFIP. Okay on strikeouts. It's in 30 and 2/3 innings of like swingman work, short starts, bulk relief outings. So it's another pitcher expecting 4 innings maybe. He got out over 4, but never completed the 5th. 4 1/3, 4 2/3 in a couple of these type starts. Absolute ceiling of probably 5 innings. And he's just very gettable. So don't sleep on the Pods. They're showing enough upside, and that's a mid-4 implied total where the field is probably going to be behind the curve on some of their upside bats and some of their surging players that we've talked about, like Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis showing life, so on and so forth. Dodgers, deadly good up at the top of the board, 4.82 implied total. But like I said, out of that group of teams all the way up at the top, as good as they look and as good as they are, they're facing easily the most talented of the starters in Sean Manaea. No guarantees on the Dodgers. Don't be shocked if he knocks them down a peg. Out of that group, with their pricing the way it is and with people probably going there, I'll take my chances in other directions. My hope is they come up a little bit more heavily owned than teams I like, just like the Marlins and so forth. Roki Sasaki looks like a great target for Mets bats for them to get right a little bit. They showed it just before I was watching Central on DVR, and Mets have lost like 9 of their last 11 home games, 9 of their last 10 home games, something like that. Mets need to get right. Lineup's gotten better. It's gotten deeper. They've gotten pieces back, but really need to put one foot in front of the other for a while here. Good spot to get it started. Sasaki has had some very good outings this year. The last 2 have been decent. No earned runs over 5 2/3 against the Yanks in Yankee Stadium the other day. 5 strikeouts and a walk, 5 hits allowed, 1 unearned run. 6 innings against the Rockies in Los Angeles, 3 earned runs, 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, allowed 2 home runs in that game. That's his problem. When he goes bad, the home run ball really, really gets him. 3 home runs allowed over 3 innings to the Pods the start before that. Give up 6 earned on 7 hits, faced 18 hitters, struck out 3, walked 2, and allowed 3 home runs. Mets have plenty of power, more than the Pods do. So you can throw some Mets bats at Sasaki and hope that they come up a little bit lightly owned for some value and probably beat that Vegas total too. That looks a little bit light. Blue Jays and Red Sox, already mentioned, don't love the Red Sox side of that one going up against Trey Yesovich. And I think the Blue Jays, with all the value they're showing anyway, going up against Patty Sandoval, seem at least interesting. 4 earned runs, 5 runs total on 9 hits to the Rays the last time out over 5 innings. Give up a home run, struck out 5 and walked 1. In the minors, he made 8 starts in AAA prior to coming up. He's made 2 starts in the show, 5 innings, 4 1/3. 23 2/3, pitched to a 3.42 ERA, struck out 22 over the 23 2/3 in AAA, but nothing overly special there. That low strikeout, pesky Blue Jay squad is a mixer at very low prices. Wanted to actually check. Whoop, I think the mouse died. One of these days I get a new mouse. Make sure you subscribe over at Rotoscouts. Kick into the new mouse fund. Rotoscouts.com, under $1 a day for access behind the scenes to every single thing that hits that website. MLB main slate focused for every single major sport. MLB, NFL right around the corner. I shouldn't be wearing a Giants hat. They're not going anywhere this year. Not a fan of my team, unfortunately. NBA, NHL also included. All one price. Same $1 a day, under $1 a day, gets you access to all of it, gang. So make sure you're checking that out. Like I said, kick into the new mouse fund. I was going to scroll across. I wanted to, as I was talking about the Blue Jays there, I'm going to check something real quick. Yeah, there he is. Davis Schneider against the lefty. A guy who hits the ball very, very hard and always has, and has found plenty of success in his career. He also does a lot of walks. He hasn't been good over 121 at all this year, but he's at the dead min price with second base eligibility on both sides. Also fits in your outfield. But that's just a good extra log on the fire of reasons to consider the Blue Jays for value. You get his price, you get nobody above 4,700 on DraftKings, nobody above 33 on FanDuel, with incredibly usable players that, yeah, they've been up and down. Vladdy's had an incredibly disappointing season. George Springer's been all over the place. Kaz Akamoto's been their big home run bat, but when you can extract some value against a gettable enough starter from a lefty pitcher, there's potential enough there as a team to, how do I get to the Dodgers and a good pitcher? Probably through the Blue Jays in a lot of lineups. Just an interesting spot. Astros and the White Sox. The White Sox, one of the top teams on the board, going up against Spencer Arrighetti. He's pitched to a 4.34 ERA. He struck out 87 in 87 innings. Probably a little bit buzzier on the mound than I think he ought to be against a deadly good, interesting White Sox team with plenty of power available for our purposes here. And Arrighetti's got a 4.88 xFIP under the surface. He's putting too many guys on base via the walk. There's just opportunity after opportunity against that pitcher. He's been a little bit lucky. So I'm willing to throw some White Sox bats at him. Sitting in my placeholders right now, White Sox Marlins combinations. Really like the looks of them, too. They fit together really well, those two teams. Mariners and the Rangers, another spot we might be able to mine some pitch. Davis Martin on the bump for the White Sox, by the way. Astros looking like they normally do, everything rotating around Jordan Alvarez. The usable bats look like usable bats. Davis Martin, an up and down season, was very, very good starting the year. Still has a 3.31 ERA, has a 3.76 xFIP above that. And then if you care about xERA, which I don't as much because it's still a flawed stat, 4.32 xERA. So he's been all over the map. The strikeouts have come down. The performances have come down lately. They've also shortened up lately. That is a gettable enough spot. Back and forth, 4.26 implied total. Not looking great for the Astros, but they retain plenty of playability around the upside bats. Jordan probably still going to be very popular as a one-off monster home run rating that we'll talk about. The Mariners-Rangers game. 2 low-end offenses, pitcher-friendly park, good pitching situation. Bryce Miller against Mackenzie Gore. Gore, to the same point, has also been completely all over the place this season. 4.80 ERA, but a 3.95 xFIP. Has plenty of strikeout upside, 122 Ks in 110 innings. That comes against only 42 walks on the season. Been very good in some ways, but has gotten nailed and has been giving up some power lately. Bryce Miller has been really, really good since getting back to full starts and getting stretched out and getting away from any kind of piggyback situation or any of that nonsense. Last time out, 5 2/3 of 2-run ball, struck out 6. Gave up 7 hits to the Giants, allowed a home run, was a little bit flawed in that one, was more flawed the start before that. 4 earned runs, 6 runs total on 9 hits over 5. Struck out 3 and walked 4. That was a little bit bumpy. That was against those Marlins, who have been just, interesting against a lot of different great pitchers. Start before that, 7 shutout innings against the Angels, 5 2/3 of 3-run ball, but struck out 11 while allowing 2 home runs against the Pirates. A lot of healthy strikeout games. Depth is back. Bryce Miller, top projected pitcher on the board, I believe. We'll get into that in just a moment. But Mackenzie Gore, I think, is very interesting in his home park going up against that gettable Mariners team at a sub-4 implied total as well. Vegas seems to agree with that spot. Jacob Lopez, as mentioned, I think is more talented than he's been pitching so far this season. But you can see the Twins at the highest overall implied total on the Vegas board. They slipped down, but again, by several slim hundredths of a point to like 4th on the FanDuel board, I think 3rd on DraftKings or however it was. We'll look at it again a little later. Little bit of a reflection there of Lopez being better than he's been on the season. We're talking about a 6.64 ERA now over 12 starts, 59 2/3. Has a 5.80 xFIP, but as mentioned, don't really care about xERA. But if you do, 3.85 against the 6.64, it's almost 3 runs different. There is a better pitcher. We've seen him be better at this level. So it wouldn't stun me if he knocked the Twins down. They only had a 3-4 run day against him. Even a 5-run day is obviously, it's not really winning us DFS slates. Might provide us a good one-off around one of the power hitters. But he's also not pitched to the level that I'm talking about throughout basically the entire season. Also been making short outings, so it doesn't look good for him on the mound. Definitely looks interesting for Twins bats from one of the top spots on the board. Just know that they're going to be popular, and there might be a decent reason to pivot around them to some of the other top-ranked teams, like, again, the White Sox, the Marlins, so on and so forth. The Athletics going up against Zebby Matthews on the other side of that game. We already talked about the potential for some upside for the A's. They rank out great on the board, across the board. Rank out great for power upside. Zebby's given up 15 home runs in 70 innings across 12 starts. Not good. 5.40 ERA, a 4.40 xFIP. Very, very gettable starter. I think the A's are going to be another underappreciated spot for upside today. That looks like an interesting situation. The Reds and the Cards. The Reds coming in light against Dustin May. Not entirely sold on that spot. I will use Dustin May. He projects out as one of the top starters of the day. That Reds team is gettable. It's an interesting situation, but there's some back and forth there, especially with current form of Dustin May. Again, only really one good outing and then one short, decent outing against since his complete game shutout one hitter. That was back on June 15th now. Been kind of a stretch of bumpy performances. 5 earned runs over 5 against Arizona in the desert last time out. Struck out 6, walked 4. Struck out 4, walked 4, but only allowed 2 earned runs on 2 hits over 4 against Atlanta. 4 2/3 of shutout ball. This was the good one, but it's only 4 2/3. It was against the Brewers. Faced 18 Brewers, struck out 7 of them, didn't walk anybody, allowed 4 hits, no earned runs. 5-run meltdown over 2/3 of an inning against the Braves. 6-run meltdown over 2 innings against the Royals. Those were the 2 starts immediately after the one hitter. So it's been, kind of iffy since he really went. That was 2 full innings beyond any other start that he's made all season. I forget what the pitch count was, but we've seen starts like that screw guys up a little bit. I mentioned it after the first one, and it's continued on. I didn't expect it to last this long. It's not necessarily because of that outing, but there's a good reason to think it might be. So wouldn't shock if the Reds came up with a solid day out ahead of that run total. If anything, I kind of like the over for the Reds. 4.41 implied for the Cards. Going up against Rhett Lauder. They're interesting mid-board type team. The usual suspects are going to be in play today from that total. And it's another spot we could probably expect them to come up as a lightly owned team with a little bit of ceiling. The Giants at the end of the night facing Grayson Rodriguez. I think that's going to get popular for good cause. Rodriguez has mostly been messy since getting back. He's barely stretched out. 4 innings of 6-run ball last time out, 3 strikeouts and a walk, allowed a home run. That was against Detroit. Had an okay day over 5 1/3 against the Twins. 3 earned runs on 6 hits. Didn't strike anybody out though. Walked 1. Not exactly a banner DFS day. I just think this form of Grayson Rodriguez is very gettable with some high quality Giants bats. It's just the guys we're going to want to go to who create the big explosive DFS scoring events. I do think are going to be very, very popular for this slate. So just bear that in mind. Logan Webb on the mound for the Giants at the end of the night looks incredible going up against that Angels team. He hasn't been himself throughout much of the season, but he's at a 3.87 ERA, 3.77 xFIP. Does have plenty of quality in his ledger from years past to rely on, and is just, if nothing else, very good at suppressing the home run ball in general. He's given up 9 on the season this year in 17 starts, not at all problematic. So we can rely on him to take the one good skill that the Angels have, which is the long ball, away from them. So if nothing else, should suppress the Angels' power potential. There's a lot of talking through the stacks in the run board, but I think it's important to do it this way today. 4:30 on the clock as we hit the pitching board. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen, details for the website, as I was just mentioning, under $1 a day for access to all 4 major sports, every single main slate included, hitting a lot of the side slates. For NFL, I'm going to have a bunch of content up for a big written preseason preview like I normally do. I'm going to rank out at least season long. Best ball, it's probably too late in the game to rank out best ball. As I've talked about, I did best ball for baseball this year, but I don't play basketball, so I don't love ranking that, but I'll have full season rankings. And then we're going to hit every single football game as we usually do. So a lot of content coming your way at Rotoscouts. You can get behind the paywall for a free week anytime on a weekly. Free first week on a weekly subscription anytime right now with promo code TRYME. That's all one word, capital T, capital M, TRYME, as is about to come scrolling across your screen. So get behind the paywall. Use these projections tonight for baseball. See how you like them. Lasts for a week and then does renew at regular price, which is $6.93 for a week. Monthly, quarterly plans also available, by the way. Get behind the scenes at Rotoscouts. Give that a shot, guys. Bryce Miller, Logan Webb looking really, really solid and separated from the field at the top of the board. Also separated a little bit by price on both sites, but both those guys, very worth it. Miller against the Rangers in that ballpark. That's a team we've talked about throughout the season about targeting them. We've talked about talking about them. We've talked about targeting them in their home park, particularly with a pitcher as good as Bryce Miller. That looks like a tremendous spot for the money. And Logan Webb, I think, equally good against a Angels team that could feed him a little bit of bonus strikeout upside. Again, just take that one big weapon away from him in terms of the long ball. No guarantees he doesn't allow one, but he's one of the better suppressors of home runs upside over the last few years that's in all of baseball. Great ground ball pitcher. Shane McClanahan against that gettable Guardian squad, 96,900. Up and down as far as depth of start on the season, but typically very, very good for as long as he's on the mound. And it's a high-quality matchup, but you can see he's separated a little bit by projection, makes up for it a little bit by separation in price. There is a big gap between him. I'd say we'll throw him into the tier with Miller and Webb. He shares some ceiling if they have a shorter start. They're close enough that I'd say that's a tier. And then there's a step down. You can see a visible step, everybody else below that 30-15 threshold, but a lot of good options through these $8,000 and $9,000 prices and even further down on DraftKings. I do think Savage is playable against the Red Sox. Again, that's a too high quality player and a lot of mix and match type guys, kind of a squad that was finding some success for a while. I don't know that it continues. I think the Red Sox are much more who they looked like at the beginning of the year than they are overall, than they are this team that went on that run. And they're drawing a bigger total. That said, out of all those guys, I probably, given the current form, want to use Savage the least. Given his current form, the role that the Red Sox have been on. Like, all right, I can come up with just as many reasons to go around him, particularly at 91 on FanDuel. At 8,000 on DraftKings, he's got plenty of utility for an SP2 spot or a low-cost SP1 spot. I think he's much, much more usable and much, much more interesting on the DraftKings board than on FanDuel. Joey Cantillo, no issues either side. Both prices are fine. There's a little bit of ceiling on that projection. Ray's good run creation engine and had found success throughout the season at finding the runs. Definitely plenty of power upside, showing around one big bat in that lineup. And then even Johnny Diaz at the top of the lineup, Jonathan on the lefty aren't flashing monster power potential, but all the quality goes through those three players. The big one was Junior Caminero, if you didn't know. I think Cantillo is very usable here, but another pitcher that Maybe you could dance around a little bit with either one of the higher cost options or a guy like Davis Martin against the Astros for a little bit cheaper, 88 on both sites. I think that price actually probably plays a little bit better on FanDuel. Definitely not a safe spot. Martin hasn't been as sharp as he was over that chunk of starts that he made through the first half of the year, but plenty good enough to get through that Astros squad, have an upside day, particularly if he dances around Yordan Alvarez a couple times and gets away with it. Then I think we're talking about something, but I like the next guy even better. Mackenzie Gore, up and down as he's been, there's plenty of talent there, more talent than Davis Martin, I think, than Joey Cantillo, and arguably with Trey Yesovich. And you're getting him at 84 against a Mariners team that's been all over the place this year. 83 on DraftKings. That's a really interesting piece, and that is a key pitcher as far as I could tell from building lineups today at just fitting things together with the high-quality bats from the teams that we want to get to. So that Mackenzie Gore lands in a lot of our lineups. My hope is other sites have him a little bit, maybe knocked down further than we do, and we get to him a little bit more aggressively. I would look to try and book position against the field on Mackenzie Gore today. Trevor Rogers, middle of the board, I think is fair. Like him a lot better at the DK price. 76 is a lot better of a price to take on that Atlanta lineup. You do benefit from having no Ronald Acuna come back today if you're playing Trevor Rogers. I don't like him as much at 89 by comparison with some of these guys up here, but I think he's perfectly switchable back and forth with, say, Davis Martin against the Astros, certainly Yesovich from a higher price. Dustin May, as mentioned, is kind of interesting for how the Reds come into that game at that sub-4 implied total. 86.78, I think the price is reflective of the downturn that he's seen in recent starts, as well as just kind of his somewhat middling status by comparison to some of the bigger names on the slate. When he's good, he can be very, very good, as we saw in that one hitter. But the downside's been very real lately. There are dangerous bats in that Reds lineup. I don't fully trust him, but I would roll those dice. You can see that he's offset by projection by yet another. He's the beginning of another tier of guys going down from there. And he's not really priced like a lot of the guys in his tier. He's priced like a lot of the guys in the tier above him. So something to be aware of with May, but incredibly playable. This hits a line of guys. I don't really want Roki Sasaki against the Mets. I can see him getting through that game. And at 73 on DraftKings, you can certainly play that as an SP2 value. But if I'm doing that, I'd probably rather dip to Sean Manaea against the Dodgers on the other side of it for another big chunk of savings at 65. Or maybe you're mining like, Grant Holmes or Zeddy in those spots for cheaper. Jacob Lopez even for 6,000, bad as he's been. I just don't love this idea. I don't trust Roki Sasaki all that much. It's been all over the place. And he's 5+% home run rate. And that Mets lineup is deep, bad as they've been. Again, Manaea is the highest quality pitcher that's facing the teams that are drawing out toward the top of the stacks board. He's in a lot of trouble against that Dodgers lineup. Anybody would be. But he's, out of this group of pitchers, everybody from Trevor Rogers down, if you told me, gun to my head, out of that group of guys, who would you take to face the Dodgers? It would absolutely, doubtless, be Sean Manaea. Not a question in my mind. So 6,500 kind of works. 77 rather on FanDuel, you probably don't need it. I don't think we need to dip that far down the price board. He's not safe enough. He's also not guaranteed of booking 6 innings, even if things are going to plan. The depth can be a little bit short with Manaea. I think that's reflected in those prices. Arrighetti feels expensive at 81, 82 when he's facing a team that we really want to get to from the top of the board. He has had some decent starts. He can find the strikeout from time to time. If all goes to plan for him, he can beat that with a little bit of ceiling, but I don't love it from where he's at. Grant Holmes, I'd rather have some Orioles bats at 75, 7,000 though. Again, from the bargain bin, if you're not expecting very much from a pretty weak pitcher, sure, you can get there. Zebby is more talented than Holmes, probably than Arrighetti, in that mix with Sasaki and May, I would say. But he's shown much more downside through the season, vulnerable to power. The A's have plenty of power. 85 for Zebby on FanDuel is kind of a no thank you. I do think he's playable out of the value bin at 68 on DraftKings, though. And Lopez on the other side of that, this is the one that I'm going to get in trouble for. As though there's some like supervisory thing that's going to come down and talk to us. But I don't know, that $6,000 price, it kind of stands out. right? This year, 17.4% strikeout, 12.8% walk. I'm not deluding myself about those things. 6.64 ERA on the season, 5.80, 5.49. No real relief in the xFIP this Sierra. Giving up a near 4% home run rate on a 21-degree average launch. But if you look under the surface, 4.6% barrel because it's not colliding with any kind of regular hard hits. Exit velo. Ran into some problems, sure, but how many of these home runs came in either Sutter or Vegas? I don't have the count on that. I don't have the answer. It's rhetorical, but if somebody wants to go look it up, go for it. Putting way too many guys on base. There are way too many walks and too few strikeouts here. He has been bad this season. But there is at least reason to believe that unless Buxton really gets a hold of one or a couple of these other guys, you're not really seeing a monster reflection for power. There are some good mid-board type marks, but only Buxton is over the magic number for power, and that was reflected in the Fangraphs game sim. When you pull back a little bit and you look at last year, 17 starts, 92 and 2/3. Remind me not to do this again when we get to this game much later on, by the way. 28.3% strikeout. Still walked too many, but it was 3 and change points lower, 3.5 points lower at 9.3%. Had an 11.8% swinging strike rate. That's down another 3 points. So that's where some of the quality's gone. It's been the uptick in walks, the lack of swinging strikes. He's just not fooling anybody. That's where some of the strikeouts have gone as well. He was very similar in terms of the premium contact numbers. So I would say the thing that and he pitched to a 4.08 ERA with a 4.13 xFIP and a 3.76 Sierra while working to a 19.05 strikeout minus walk. Again, 20 is like ace caliber. 3.76 Sierra is something to target. This is all very real. This is just last year. I would say the one attribute that we know for sure that he has over these now, 29 starts, a complete season essentially, is this right there. That ability to induce weak and medium contact, miss the barrel, not have that convergence of the big impact events that he happens to allow being on incredible fly ball trajectories. I think there's a lot of ballpark negative working against him in some of these surface numbers. Again, not trying to sell him too hard. Like I said, this is where I'll get in trouble. He doesn't project out great from the bottom of the board, but he is very, very cheap. And that 5-run total for this team, maybe a little suspect. I'm not saying it should be 4.25 or anything like that, but 5+, like that's, what if we said, and this might have already happened. I haven't checked since the show started, but let's say we just take a half run away from that game, right? Just a half run for the game total with no changes to the line. Now they're at 4.89, the Twins. That feels more appropriate. Puts them right in the same bucket as the Dodgers, the Marlins, the White Sox, so on and so forth. I don't think that's crazy. So again, not selling you Jacob Lopez, really. Just wanted to talk about the spot and how he could maybe be interesting if you're considering Zebby on the one side. If you're considering Sean Manaea against the Dodgers, well, you're making the same decision by going to Jacob Lopez at 6,000 for less. Patty Sandoval has some of that going for him at 67. He can give you 5 competent innings against the low-quality Blue Jays team, but I prefer the Blue Jays bats with all that value we were talking about. Louder against St. Louis, don't love it. Randy Vasquez, Grayson Rodriguez, Ryan Gusto, and Edmar Marquez. Mostly not going to pitch deep enough into their respective spots, but they're all also pretty terrible. How's my driving? XX Cub says, I'd like to speak to the director of player suggestions. Yeah, the supervisor. He's coming down, man. He's going to be here any minute now. Kick the door down, start yelling at me. Adam James Abroad was in there talking to himself for a few minutes, poor guy. Appreciate it. Yeah, bad weather in St. Louis. That's the one weather spot to call out. I didn't pull the weather board today because it was just that one, but appreciate you there. Was that Adam? If you're still out there. He's still got it as yellow. It's a 74-degree night, wind blowing across the field, 40% chance of rain. Should be some rain during game time. But what Ross' take was that it's going to be kind of light. So it seems like maybe even the kind of spot that they play through, which, yeah, it just gets messy. I don't love pitchers in those situations, but definitely plenty working against the bats. And again, Dustin May can be good. So going up against that Reds team, that sub-4 implied total with the way he hits the value board as well, Going to be in the mix for sure. Quality says, can you stack any team in Texas? Yeah, I think so. I got no issues with it. I don't like the pitching matchup, but both of those teams, if you're going to a spot where the bats don't look good, they come in at sub-4 implied runs. Both of those teams do provide significant upside bats. There's quality through those lineups. So if you're just looking at it through that lens, then yeah. But those are two of the better starters on the board and two of the lower totals. I mean, there are very few exceptions where a team is entirely unstackable. And they're going to come up very lightly owned with how those pitchers are likely to be owned and what those totals look like. Through that lens, I probably like taking Seattle against Mackenzie Gore. And I think Seattle offers you the higher quality bats. You lose a couple of the lefties, probably the Dom Canzone's. Canzone's getting an opportunity against everybody, but Luke Raley probably not in the lineup. We'll get there eventually. Remind me to talk about it, quality, if you're still here. All right, first game up, mid-4s implied for the Braves. Same deal on the Orioles side. Again, I think these teams are at least somewhat interesting. The Orioles, top ranked for value on FanDuel, third ranked for value, fourth by home runs, sixth by Vegas total. They're facing Grant Holmes, striking out fewer than 20% of hitters, 10.3% walk. He is finding swinging strikes. He's just not finishing guys off. 12% swinging strike rate is pretty good. Pitching to a 3.70, but has a lackluster 4.68 xFIP, 4.75 Sierra, and targetable levels of contact. 42.8% hard hit, 90.8 miles an hour of exit velo on a fly ball trajectory. Should feed some upside for home runs. You can see only Pete Alonso coming in over the magic number, but several of the other Orioles. I think I just made every vowel sound. Several of the other Orioles bats, like Gunnar Henderson, like Taylor Ward, like Colton Cowser, coming in with noteworthy enough power marks in the 8s. Dylan Beavers in the leadoff role today, getting on base at a 329 clip, decent enough table setter, just a 311 weighted on base with a 303 xWOB. It's only 165 plate appearances. He's drawing a 9.7% walk rate against a lowering 23.6% strikeout rate that's down a couple points from last year in the small sample. Interesting spot for the kid at a cheap price in the leadoff role against a very gettable righty. That kind of works to start things off. 3,000, 2,600, rolls directly into Alonso with all his home run upside. 21 homers on the year. The slash line by comparison to last year is leaving something to be desired, but the premium contact is there, even though it's down a few points. In a vacuum for anybody, this is pretty good. It's just not for the superhuman version of Pete Alonso that we've seen in some spots in the past. Gunnar not having the year we were hoping for, but still has 17 home runs. A lot of counting stats, the ability to crush baseballs from the left side. Don't skip Gunnar if you're going to this team aggressively. Every now and then it's okay, but he is one of the linchpins for this team. Taylor Ward's gotten on base a ton. The home runs have been lacking this year, but the price is right for a guy who's just getting on base, setting the table for some of the bats that follow him. After him in the lineup, Colton Cowser from the left side is interesting. Jackson Holliday from the left side, kind of interesting as well, but price is down on both those players. Jackson Holliday, the slash line is mixed, 216, 331, 366, kind of all over the place. But 5 homers, 4 steals in 160 plate appearances with 18 runs and 15 ribbies. He's given you some interesting fantasy days. Has a 323 xWOB that's slightly above average under his 313 actual. Is 1 point above average for run creation on the season by WRC+. Has a 9.5% barrel rate. There are signs of life here, and he's very cheap in the middle infield. So that's an interesting player. Colton Cowser mashes baseballs regularly from the left side. Just has been, well, I shouldn't say regularly right before saying wildly inconsistent, but has. 247 plate appearances this year. He's been all over the place, but 8 home runs, 5 steals, hit 16, stole 14 in an up and down season in half a season last year, and had 24 in 561 chances in a complete season the year before. It's only 2,700 in the heart of the lineup against Grant Holmes. Don't sleep on CES down lineup. He's 3,200 on DraftKings. He's 2,800 on FanDuel. He was more interesting for the dead min the other day, but they haven't raised the prices quite enough, and we talked about him a lot. He's up to 2 home runs in his 17 plate appearances now, finding some success at this level. Hopefully he keeps it up. It's a really interesting bat if he does. The kid's got ludicrous light tower power, and he's very, very cheap still down here. 6.46 in the home run model, better than these guys, in line with these guys up at the top. So a lot of value to be extracted down there. Love the idea of plunking him in at third base as well. No positional blocker to Pete Alonso. And then Chadwick Trump, just a mix and match guy. Going up against Trevor Rogers at 76 at 89. Rogers not reaching a 20% strikeout over 18 starts now. The walk rate's fine. 4.28 ERA, 4.56 xFIP, 4.59 Sierra. The power hasn't been problematic, but it's there. I mean, 39.5% hard hits, 89 miles an hour of exit velo on an 18.6 degree average launch. You can put the ball in the seats against this pitcher. Facing a lineup with some right-handed power and some lefties who can mash lefties. I don't like the spot all that much for Trevor Rogers at 89 on FanDuel. It's problematically priced. On DraftKings at 76, at worst, it's a throwable value dart. I'd rather have him at, say, 72, 7,000 over there. A couple $100, probably still too high. But when he's good, he can be very, very good. So there is a little bit of back and forth there, 4.44 implied total. I would hope to get to some Braves bats at lower ownership than some of the other high-end teams. You can see that Rogers 2.44% home run rate allowed this year, just 1.42 last year on similar levels of contact. You can see there's a ton of hard hit and exit velo going through an adequate enough launch angle. He just managed to duck around the home run ball throughout last season. So a little bit of impact from that may or may not be entirely real, but he has been able to sustain that result over a pretty fair sample of, what was that, 35 starts now? So it's playing a little bit of games on the home run numbers for the Braves, but they still read out plenty fine for fantasy points. Matt Olson has plenty of upside, even lefty at 6.78. He's hit 26 home runs on the season, getting on base at a great clip. 357 xWOB under his 370 actual to support the ongoing quality, and double-digit barrels for him, plus another 4 hitters in this lineup. 50% hard hit rates for him, plus Drake Baldwin, plus Michael Harris. Austin Riley up to 11.2% barrels and 44.2% hard hits. 12 home runs on the board, stolen 6 bases. Slashing 216, 295, 354. Slash line still really ugly. 290 weighted on base, 310 xWOBA, or 300, excuse me. Still a lot of ugliness there, but that's a very usable piece when we're looking to attack a lefty who allows hard hits and allows fly balls. Austin Riley's the ideal candidate for upside to come into this lineup at that price, at that position, if you're going to this team. He's also an interesting enough third baseman to just keep in mind if that's a position you've left open in a build at those medium grade prices. That's a good bat to buy, bad as he's been this year, downslide notwithstanding over the last year plus. Eli White, Joey Bart, and Jorge Mateo down lineup. Mateo's been hitting the ball very hard over 135 plate appearances. That's not realistic to expect that to continue. This is who he's been throughout his career, about half of what he's been doing in terms of barrel rate and a lot less hard hits. But right now, you're getting some upside when he gets into the lineup. 244, 289 needs to improve somewhat so he can extract more upside from his stolen base skills. 84 WRC plus obviously needs to climb to stay in the lineup as well. But nice cheap price. What I don't love is the shortstop positioning on DK. Second base and outfield for 23 works a lot better for that player on FanDuel. Joey Bart's got a little bit of pop in the bat, 9.1% barrel this year, 9+ each of the last 2 seasons in mixed samples with a decent hard hit rate last year, a bad one the year before that, but a playable piece, again, a cheap catcher in the lineup. And then Eli White, just another outfielder. Orioles bats, considering the value that was reflected, followed by Braves bats for similar reasons. If I'm going to a pitcher here, it is Trevor Rogers, but don't fully trust the spot. It's an okay projection, but the DraftKings price works a lot better. So it's probably Rogers DK, Rogers FanDuel, Grant Holmes either site. Not really an important piece in my mind. Adam James Rudd still here. Good. Appreciate you, buddy. Travis Duarte asked Peterson or Conine, last man in. We talking Jock Peterson or Conine? Then I can't think of another Peterson who spells his name that way. Conine. Yeah. From a team we want to get to, a spot we want to target, who's not going to be even within that equation, owned enough. Like among the people who get to the Marlins, Conine will not be owned enough. Everybody's going to have Stowers and Eddie Berto and Xavier Renato. So yeah, I like Conine there. I think there's plenty of upside. Jock is tremendous, and when you get him against a righty, there's obvious upside in that. But facing Bryce Miller, no thanks. Miller can give up the home run ball. That plays in Jock's favor. I'm arguing with myself in my head, as you can tell. But I would take the kid from the lineup we want to get to. Guardians, lowest total on the board, I believe, 335, going up against Shane O'Mac here. 91 innings in 18 starts for McClanahan. He got stretched back out where he was hitting the 6-inning mark for us. Finding the strikeout at a 22.5% clip is good enough, but there's a little bit more there, I think. 11.8% swinging strike rate. We've seen him be better for strikeout in the past. 3.16 ERA, 4.0 xFIP on the nose. Call it a 3.5 if we're being fair to him in terms of the run when we normalize things. I think slightly under projected compared to the top two starters, but significantly better than everybody else on the board for a cheaper price than the top two guys. Has him in a position to be very, very popular and super interesting and important to our builds today. Really like the looks of McClanahan here where we can afford him. But like I said, whoever that was Mackenzie Gore at like 84. I think was coming up a little bit more, at least on FanDuel compared to that 96. I was trying to get to some McClanahan shares as I was building lineups, though. Joey Cantillo on his side of this game, 8,500, 9,400, 106 innings in 21 starts, giving you okay depth, striking out nearly 25%, but losing hitters to walk, 11.4% walk, not sustainable. 3.74 ERA is kind of an illusion. The 4.30 Sierra or even higher is probably a realistic number if he continues to walk that many hitters. He hasn't allowed much power. That's been helping him out and helping him defy the expected numbers in terms of the runs allowed marks. Doesn't allow too much of a fly ball trajectory, but overall kind of a substandard pitcher, below average across all 3+ categories. Just the cutter above average pitch. So not a great starter, but a usable one. He's got the Rays checked down at a 3.73 implied total. He's been getting away with a lot, and he does have strikeout ability. So when you mix him in, when we're talking about DFS quality, I think it becomes a matter of where he's priced and who he's facing. And at 85, at 94, even with an okay projection on our pitching board, right? He's right there. And he's facing this top-heavy Rays lineup. It's a very back and forth. I think that is a very good price to have him at to make this a difficult decision on both sides. He's got plenty of usability, but the downside is there at that 94 on FanDuel. At 85, I think it's tighter on DraftKings. I can get around him where I only need one, and he comes in at that price a little bit more effectively on FanDuel. Those are really tight prices. If he was any cheaper, I'd probably be talking him up a little bit more in that spot. Because again, decent as this Rays team has been at creating runs, they fall off the board a little bit when they come in below 4 runs in terms of their fantasy upside. Everything being focused around, basically those three guys. Those three guys have a collective 140 WRC plus. So to a man, each of those guys is 40% better than average at run creation by WRC plus. Everybody else in the lineup amounts to a 92. And that's spiked a little bit in a 167 plate appearance sample by Ryan Valade, 113. He's a contact and speed focused player. He hit 7 oddball home runs on medium quality contact earlier in the season. It's a mix and match piece. A 101 on Johnny DeLuca is the only other guy remotely close to league average. They've gotten a lot done through happenstance, through good fortune, through these guys being as good as they are and getting on base at ludicrous levels. And then whoever happens to come through at the bottom of the lineup, as we keep on harping on with this squad. So I don't love them, but they could absolutely do that to a guy like Joey Cantillo. Having to make the decision, I prefer the Cantillo side of it and where he's projected on the board. Again, at the 85, I think much more important to your DraftKings slate. I think we can get around him on FanDuel. Don't need to get around him. I'm not saying you have to avoid this pitcher. But there's plenty of cause to do that. He is probably going to be a lot lower on, though, because everybody's thinking that conundrum through. Guardians bats going up against McClanahan. Maybe here and there you could take a little bit of the upside that you have the bad McClanahan day show up where he goes just 5 innings, pitches to more the 4 and change run guy. Aleu Martinez back at the top of the lineup. Had an interesting surge at the beginning of the year. He's nowhere near that guy that we saw for a minute there. 11 home runs, 9 steals in 243 plate appearances. He's okay to start a lineup, but not a guy I'm really looking to get to, not a reason to go to the Guardians. Chase DeLauder, Rhys Hoskins. There's plenty of power upside in Rhys Hoskins, a 3 true outcomes type hitter who draws a good walk rate, but he's slashing 177, 310, 377, 11 home runs in 281 plate appearances. It's important to be realistic about this kind of thing. No Jose Ramirez in the lineup, by the way, for the Guardians, so another gigantic reason to stay away, and that plays in McClanahan's favor. Brian Rocchio miscast as a cleanup bat. Travis Bazzana should probably be hitting higher up the lineup, 4,433, but lefty not set to do him favors here. 9 home runs, 15 steals, and 314 plate appearances, though. The kid's been good. Gabriel Arias, maybe an interesting righty bat with a little bit of sneaky power to throw into the mix if you're going to this team, but he's also striking out at a 42.7% clip while drawing a nothing walk rate, so probably more likely to be a McClanahan victim for a K here rather than give up a home run to him. Austin Hedges, Petey Halpin down the bottom of the lineup, just mix and match guys. So what would the purpose of going to this team be? Couldn't tell you. On the Rays side, again, it's about those top 3 guys. 51, 41, 61, but you can only have 2 of them on DraftKings. On FanDuel, 35, 31, 39, a little bit tougher to fit price-wise. You can get all 3 of them, and then you're just throwing a dart at Sed Mullins, maybe Valade, lower-end options for the other guys. Not a great squad outside of the top 3. Sed Mullins gives you counting stats, but inconsistency galore. A lot of zeros in his game. 12 homers, 16 stolen bases, 36 runs, 31 ribbies. Counting stats are okay across that many plate appearances. But it's also, it's not, they're okay. It's not crazy good for 342. He picked up an extra 100 plate appearances compared to where I was thinking he was. Johnny DeLuca at 38, 28, 6 homers, 10 steals. Okay, 262 average. He's found a little success on balls in play, but a nothing measures by premium contact. A 296 on base despite the 262 average. Does nothing else up there. Chandler Simpson, fast as your car, but doesn't get on base. Not doing anything interesting this year. 88 WRC plus. Valade's another really fast player. Finding some success on balls in play. Mix and match guy. Williamson, Fortes. There's nothing here. McClanahan, Cantillo, Rays bats, Guardians bats, pitchers better than hitters. Most of these lineups are in, by the way. It was great before the start of the show. 5 o'clock, we'll go through these last, 8 more games? We'll get through it in about an hour. Probably a little bit after 6 we'll be off. Nando Tatis, top of the Pods lineup. Again, the Pods are kind of interesting here. Going up against Ryan Gusto in 30 2/3, 6 starts and some hybrid work, 19.6% strikeout, allowing a 2.17% home run rate, but it comes on a 15.1 degree average launch with plenty of barrels in there, 42.4% hard hits, 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo. He's pitched to a 4.70 ERA with a 4.53 xFIP, 4.30 SIERA. Putting guys on base via the base hit, low strikeout pitcher. It's the perfect guy to throw some probably low-owned Padres at. Quality for Nando in the top spot, just under the magic number at 9.93. He's hit 8 home runs, stolen 25 bags on the year. Everybody likes to hate on Nando Tatis. I keep talking him up. At 3,500, particularly with that second base eligibility on FanDuel, he remains very interesting. This is a player getting on at a 353 clip, providing counting stats. Playing to a 333 weighted on base with a 358 xWOBA, 11.1% barrels and 53.7% hard hits. If he ever just decides to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to hit 10 home runs before the end of the season and just pull the ball all the time, change up the profile a little bit, there's nothing in the world stopping him from doing that. So monster any given slate upside, great matchup. Jake Cronenworth, good spot in the lineup for that kind of a player. I mean, miscast in the 2 spot, but glad to see him up toward the top of the lineup again. That's a player when he's going right, is a good table setter and should be able to do that for Manny Machado, for Ty France, who's been surging throughout the year and remains at a good price. 275, 331, 547 season, over 261 plate appearances for France now. He's only 32, 3,000. I still don't expect it to last, at least at this level, much longer. 332 xWOBA does tell us he's 40 points above that. But even that, if he was playing at 332 right now, we'd be saying, hey, look at the good season Ty France is having. And those would be underpriced, or at least DraftKings would be an underprice. Manny, fully back, 22 home runs on the board, improving everything across the slash line, carrying a 224 ISO. We still care about ISO. 10.01, the only guy above the magic number in the home run model. Jackson Merrill, making very good contact that isn't paying off across most of what he's doing over here. 421 pretty ugly looking plate appearances. The counting stats are okay. 14 homers, 20 stolen bases mostly, but a solid runs and RBI total as well. Nothing predictive about runs and RBIs, by the way. I always got to mention that when we bring those stats up. Nothing to write home about through the weighted on base and xWOBA categories either, but look at the contact he's making. This should deliver more quality. And we've seen it do so from him. It's very similar to where he's been in his more successful seasons. So, yeah, it hasn't been there, but it might show up. 7.73 in the home run model today for a fair price on both sites. That includes some of the downturn. Luis Campusano also gives you some of that salary back if you're using the catcher from this team with him on DraftKings, because he's got very similar barrel and hard hit rates and has been able to hit the ball consistently hard throughout the 96 plate appearances so far. Growing sample at 284, 396, 519, 4 home runs on the board, a 235 ISO, 397 weighted on base, backed up by a 350 xWOBA, but that's 40 points lower, 47 points lower. But that's a high quality xWOBA from a player like this who costs what he does at that position. Gavin Sheets, a little bit better than a mix and match guy, 14 home runs on the board, but inconsistency throughout the slash. 11.7% walk rate. If he gives you a walk on top of a good batted ball event, you usually cash out well with Gavin Sheets. If he doesn't give you that walk bonus, then you probably miss. Xander Bogart, obviously, if he goes out and hits a 3-run homer, it's a different story. Xander Bogart's 34-28 mix and match guy at short who can give you counting stats here and there. Sung Song, another mix and match type guy, 226, 321, 301. Does have 11 stolen bases and just 107 chances. So when he's gotten on base, he's going, but he's not getting on all that consistently, and he's not hitting the ball all that interestingly otherwise. Low strikeout, fairly high walk rate, though. On the Marlins side, team we've talked up quite a bit already. Travis Duarte says, my bad, I got Hicks and Conine. But we're about to talk about those Marlins, so buckle up. For one thing, easy starting point, 2 of these guys above the magic number for home run quality. That's Eddie Berto Hernandez and our home run pick of the day, Mr. Kyle Stowers. I would have actually considered using Griff at 8.08 a couple spots later, but I used him just the other day. I didn't want to double up on my Griff Conine picks. Went a little chalkier with Kyle Stowers. Love the price on Stowers, $3,100 on FanDuel, outfield and first base eligible, landing him in the outfield quite a bit with the teams I'm looking to get him with, having quite a few first basemen to go through. But movable piece, first base only on DraftKings, but only $4,000 over there. Nice affordability on that site. 12 home runs in 331 plate appearances. We saw more consistent power output from him with a better home run total last year. Barrels are down about 8 percentage points, but hard hit rate is actually up. Strikeout rate is back up a little bit. Walks are down a little bit. There's definitely been frustrating inconsistency, but going up against Herman Marquez, followed by Randy Vasquez, definitely a spot this team can tee off. Marquez in 44 2/3 across 9 starts, a couple bulk relief appearances. It just mixed that ball over the place. 5.24 ERA, 5.66 xFIP, allowing a 5.53% home run rate. Tons of exit velocity on a 17.6 degree average launch angle is problematic for any quality pitching. Do not play Padres pitching. And all of that justifies the upside for the Marlins. But Stowers looks great. Home run pick of the day. Eddie Berto is easily $1,000 too cheap, if not more, on DraftKings at that $3,400 price. Great opportunity for value. All he's done is hit 13 home runs and get on at a 319 clip, carrying a 341 weighted on base, a 364 xWOBA with a 113 WRC plus in his 254 chances, and has been just mashing over the last month and change. 13.3% barrel, 51.8% hard hit. Don't sleep on Eddie Berto Hernandez. Take advantage. Hopefully the field does. Xavier Edwards, Liam Hicks, high quality bats in the middle of the lineup for their positions at great prices, 42, 45 for all the success they provide. 290, 372, 404 season for Xavier Edwards with tons of run scoring ability, setting the table for Liam Hicks, who, despite not making great contact, has 14 home runs on the season. And even more importantly, I think 285, 361, 451, just a lot of success off that slash line, a lot of success on batted balls, and he puts a ton of balls in play. Sub 10% strikeout rate, 9.5% walk rate. Last year, 14, 4, 11%. So it's a skill set for Liam Hicks. carrying a 9.26 in the home run model. Maybe that's a little bit high, just bouncing off some big totals in the just raw numbers. But he's been doing it. You can't really justify taking it away from him at this point. Griff, in his 110 plate appearances, 7 home runs, 268, 355, 536, a 268 ISO, 17.5% barrel rate, 54% hard hit rate. It's a small but growing sample. A lot of pedigree here if you want to think back. Your dad played Major League Baseball. It's like the player, like the price quite a bit, 32.28. Going to have some Griff Conan in my Marlin stacks for sure. High priority player that, again, I think the field doesn't get to as much. Jacob Marcy, Javier Sanoa, just mix and match pieces down lineup. Sanoa's pulling off a decent slash line, 275, 310, 406. Just a 95 WRC plus, though. Doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. Just succeeds on balls in play. 8.2% strikeout, 5.2% walk. But it comes and goes quite a bit. Where he's most valuable is around his positional flex. Third base is where you'd want him on DraftKings. Has more value at the price and 3 added positions on FanDuel. I wouldn't really want him at shortstop. You've got alternate shortstops that you want a lot more on this very team, let alone all the other teams. Both Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez, who I skipped over at the top of the lineup, have shortstop second base eligibility on FanDuel. That's a second baseman and a shortstop on DraftKings. Same deal, really, though. Otto's been tremendous, 332, 367, 499 year, not slowing down at all. 372 weighted on base with a 337 xWOBA that is good enough anyway, but he's also the type of player profile that I think he can continue to defy that and just be very, very good. His price has gone way up. He's one of the more expensive options positionally on FanDuel, but he's been well worth it, and this is one of the stacks we really want to get to. Marcy has been bad all season, has a little bit of speed, 19 stolen bases, but Sub Mendoza 313, not going to get you there. And then Joe Mack, an interesting catcher to mix in. If you're not able to afford Liam Hicks, 2,900 for Joe Mack is not uninteresting at the bottom of the lineup. 9 homers in 190 plate appearances, 9.4% barrel rate on the season. Striking out a lot, not walking enough, not providing much quality through the slash line, right at the average line. 100 is league average WRC plus. Let's give it to him. We'll call him league average. But it's a small growing sample of a kid who can put good wood on the ball for a cheap price at the bottom of the lineup from the left side against 2 incredibly vulnerable righties. Again, when we swap this out from Herman Marquez to Randy Vasquez, the power marks come down slightly for the Marlins. The projections are exactly the same, like dead on. Great spot to be Miami. Miami bats. Padres bats. Wouldn't play any of the pitching in this game. Quality Soul, what's going on, buddy? Oh, yes, you can. I'm glad I answered your question in my ranting and raving. I hadn't even seen it. Yes, Quality Soul, you would hit the nail on the head. Can I get away with Mac over Hicks for savings? You can. I would throw into the mix with that as well the fact that I really do like Liam Hicks and his profile for what he does. He's found a ton of success. But as mentioned, those 14 home runs are a bit of an outlier on that kind of contact. I don't think you should necessarily expect that to be ongoing. Last year, he hit 6 in 390 while making very, very similar contact. Slight uptick this year, but there is a lot of happenstance there. But again, it's just a guy who puts so many balls in play that he becomes interesting through that alone. But I think the 285, 361 part of that line is probably the most realistic thing. And you can see some of that reflected 354 weighted on base with a 311 xWOBA underneath. So below average xWOBA, below average expectation for power hitting to go on to, for extra base hits to continue. But I think he does continue hitting for average. I think he does continue getting on base and providing important plate appearances. But when you go down to Joe Mack, the very real attribute that he's provided so far is that 9.4% barrel, some really interesting batted ball events. And that's the opposite situation where you're not getting consistency. You're getting too many strikeouts. He's got triple the strikeout rate almost that Liam Hicks has, but his batted ball events are noisier. So absolutely for value, definitely make that switch. Dodgers are kind of self-explanatory now. My issue there, as mentioned, among the top-ranked teams, and they're neck and neck with the top-ranked teams. If you weren't here at the beginning of the show, that's our stacks board. But all these teams right here in that little pocket, by our projections and by Vegas total, they're separated by like a quarter run on the Vegas board, especially if the Twins come down by half a run in that game total, which they should. And they're separated by literally like 5/100ths of a fantasy point across the 9-man lineup. And that's across like all these top 5. From here to like here today is separated by like a quarter of a fantasy point on average. So it's a really tight board. So among those teams at the very top, would you rather draw down against Herman Marquez, Randy Vasquez, Sean Manaea, Spencer Arrighetti, Jacob Lopez, Grayson Rodriguez, so on and so forth? Sean Manaea is easily the best, most talented, most proven starter from the top spot until we get to, on talent, Trey Yesevich. Not necessarily on provenness. Arguably Trevor Rogers. But that is a giant chunk of the top of the board that Sean Manaea is better than. So the Dodgers, good as they are facing the best starter in that group. They're also pulling a 4.82 implied total and great projections against him because they're the Dodgers, and it's ridiculous. 22 home runs on the board for Ohtani, 17 for Andy Pages, who's getting on at a 333 clip now. He's kind of sticking it in my face for saying that he can't hold down that 2 spot quite as much as he as the ideal skill set would up there. I continue to think that ought to be Freddie Freeman. There's some good arguments to be made for other guys. Maybe you could spark Kyle Tucker by moving him up to that spot in the lineup after that demotion earlier in the year. He's been mostly terrible all season, but there's still a Kyle Tucker lurking in there somewhere. I'm convinced of it. Pages incredibly playable at 52.33. Very expensive up at the top of the board, more so on DraftKings, I would say. With Pages at 52, with Freddie at 57, Mookie at 5,000. They feel a little bit cheaper relative to cap for those 4 players on FanDuel. That's a 31.75 average, 12.7 total for the 4 guys. If you're punting the Ohtani spot, they become instantly a lot easier to get to. Miguel Rojas, just a mix and match type guy. 292, 335, 417. Finds plenty of success. Crushes left-handed pitching, in fact. So something to bear in mind there. If you're looking to get even cheaper with the Dodgers, and probably the angle to fit Ohtani in is through Miguel Rojas and his multi-position eligibility. You prefer him at second or third base. Still not a great option, though, and that's probably the exact window that everybody's sneaking into Ohtani's house through. So I don't love that. Kyle Tucker is, again, very interesting and has tremendous success throughout his career, lefty-lefty. I would not sleep on Kyle Tucker upside. He's pulling a 10.30 on the home run model, by the way. Probably comes down somewhat when I get to his update. We'll see. Like this game next week maybe looks a little bit different, but not much. Teoscar Hernandez, monster power from the right side against anybody. Low-end season, over 270 plate appearances with missed time mixed in. Has 8 home runs. Has a 44.9% hard hit, 9.6% barrel rate. So definitely a big-time power bat that's in play against the lefty. Carrying a 9.18 in the home run model for a cheap price on DK at 4,200. So I would look to get one of either Kyle Tucker or Teoscar Hernandez into my lineup, or maybe it's even Dalton Rushing. Cheap catcher bat at 3,900. He's at 11 home runs and 222 chances, but he's going to be lefty-lefty against a good lefty here in Manaea. So I don't know if I love that as much as the righty bat of Teoscar Hernandez, or just the upside and the proven quality of Kyle Tucker, when people will not be going to Kyle Tucker as much as they should. And then I would take one of those 2 with Rojas, and then probably try and get 3 of these guys up here. So just as an exercise, let's go the more common route and take Teoscar and Rojas. And then, I mean, the goal would obviously be to get Ohtani in there. So just as a 3-man, as a note, that's 4,433 apiece. 13.3 for the 3-man. That does include Teoscar and Shohei. So that's not a bad starting point. Edman is very, very playable in there. You could take him at the $4,700 at the third base, and this stack fills out nicely still around him. But that's not really the goal here. We're looking to get like Freddie, Mookie, Pages, Freddie, something like that. The cheapest way to get to that would be through Pages, Mookie, and leave Freddie on the table there. We go that route. We're at exactly 4,700 apiece for the 5-man, 23,500 total. And I'm getting Ohtani, Pages, Mookie, Teoscar, and a wild card Miguel Rojas against the lefty. Again, for 4,700 apiece, when Ohtani's at 6,700. So that's not bad. That makes it playable. 23.5 for the 5-man is workable. So there's interesting ways through the Dodgers lineup. Good as Manaea can be, good as that they're drawing a great total against, and there's every reason in the world to think that they succeed from near the top of the board. Not quite there. You can see how they bounce off value a little bit, but we can work through that, as you just saw. On the Mets side, they're going up against Roki Sasaki here, who he's pitched to a 22.7% strikeout in 17 starts, around the league average. 9.1% walk rate's a little inflated. When he's good, he can be very good at missing bats. 13% swinging strike rate. He's got some nasty stuff. You can see the stuff plus mark, 109.76. That's dramatically above average. But he's a little bit erratic. He's below average as a locator. He's giving up way too much premium contact and power. And I think that's the real talking point here. Working to a 4.98 ERA, a 4.31 xFIP, 4.23 Sierra under the surface. But he's given up a 12% barrel, 44.8% hard hits, 90.3 miles an hour of exit velo, alarmingly above average, or above the emergency thresholds in each of those categories, also above average, or worse than average, and giving up a 5+% home run rate. Normally we get worried about your home runs when you're at 4. He's given up 5% for the season. So that's a problematic spot that feeds some believable upside into these Mets bats for power. And that's why they're rating out as one of the better value spots of the day. First by home run rating, 6th by value on FanDuel. They're bumpy for value on DraftKings, actually, at 12. 8th by points on both sites. I don't think people get to them quite as much, thinking about how bad the Mets have been, the bright spots that Sasaki's put up on the board, and why would you want to take those things against one another. I think that leads to upside, and I hope I get it low owned. AJ Ewing in the leadoff role has been good. 345 on base, good slash line, 7 homers, 11 steals, and 251 chances. What am I missing? Why is he so cheap? He's been fantastic since joining the show. 117 WRC plus. Kid's just good, and he's in a dynamite spot in this lineup, hitting ahead of one of the very best players in baseball in Juan Soto. 14.1% barrel on the season. You can see how Soto's power is playing off of what Sasaki's been allowing. Soto looks like one of the bigger home run opportunities on the day. If nothing else, take away from this that Juan Soto looks like a tremendous one-off opportunity at a high price today. 62 on DraftKings, a little bit of a discount, honestly, on FanDuel at 37. That's a $4,000 player easy. 21 home runs on the board, a 404 on base percentage. That floats some upside for Bo Bichette. Just putting balls in play when Soto's getting on base ahead of you at that kind of a clip results in RBIs. He's got 51 ribbies on the season, despite being up and down at best. That's being pretty generous. 256, 305, 372, a 298 weighted on base. Does have a 327 xWOBA, making similar contact where he's always been. Strikeouts are up a little bit, but not too concerningly so. I think the price is still right on Bo Bichette. Fills third base admirably on both sites. Still has the shortstop eligibility on FanDuel. We want Frankie Lindor there if we're going to this team. He's up next at 41 on DraftKings. Incredibly playable. Same on FanDuel. 6 homers. Struggling really to find the quality in an ongoing sense and consistently since his return to action after the long injury absence, but a 9.1% barrel, 49% hard hits on the season, limited strikeouts, fair amount of walks. All of this looks a lot like the Francisco Lindor that we know and love. Some of it looks better than he was last year. And last year was a season in which he hit 31 home runs and stole 31 bases while getting on a 346 clip, carrying a 129 WRC plus. He's a superstar. And he's priced way down. It's stupid, flat out stupid to have Frankie Lindor, mixed as he might be this year, for 4,100 against this pitcher. So maybe the Mets bounced off the value mark, like not great, when I pulled it up a minute ago at 12. But within that, I have an underpriced Bo Bichette, pretty dramatically underpriced. A Frankie Lindor that's 900 underpriced. He shouldn't be below 5,000. He's just too good. And all the attributes that he needs to succeed are intact. Carson Bench, arguably a couple bucks cheap. And then Lubob at 37. So within that ranking, there are individually very, very appealing spots for value. Not to mention Jared Young at 25. Maybe gets blocked out of a lot of first base opportunities by other higher value first baseman from better teams in better spots. But that's an interesting piece. He's carrying a 10.8% barrel, 45.8% hard hit rate on the season. He's put 7 in the seats in 173 plate appearances. The power upside is very real. He's cut strikeouts significantly in his small run of opportunities here. On FanDuel, you get him in the outfield as well for only 25. Solid piece to move around if you can't quite afford Lou Bob or Carson Benj ahead of him. That's not a bad alternative from the left side with plenty of thunder in that bat. 7.67 in the home run model. Marcus Semien, bad year, but a mix and match piece who can provide some counting stats here and there. He has hit 10 home runs in 335 chances, 7.6% barrel, 35.6% hard hit. Don't look good in a vacuum. That's also exactly who he has always been. Even when in his successful years, he was never consistently finding the barrel or the hard hits, but found a bunch of home runs, the home run to fly balls, and just got out. So any given slate appeal, at least at very cheap prices at second base. I'd rather have a lot of other second basemen from other teams and 5 of the other Mets. But every now and again, if Semien falls into a Mets stack, no issues with it. And then bringing up the bottom of the lineup with Frankie Alvarez, who only has 11 home runs in 248 chances, only carrying a 334 weighted on base with a near matching 333 XWOBA, with 13 points above average by WRC+, while mashing the baseball to a tune of a 15.7% barrel rate in that sample. Tell me that kid can't hit a home run against a guy who is allowing this kind of contact? This is a 9-man Mets lineup that's quite good. Forgive me, it's an 8-man Mets lineup because Marcus Semien really sucks. But this is an interesting squad. I would not be surprised at all if the Mets bend the day a little bit against Roki Sasaki. On the other side of that exact same coin, I would not be surprised at all if Roki Sasaki came out and had a decent enough day against these Mets, because he's done that through the season, and he is a little bit better under the surface in terms of the runs when he's not allowing the masher home run power. And he's got a little strikeout potential that can put some fantasy points on the board. So I don't want to take him away from you at 73. He's in the bargain bin for sure as far as being on the mound. 82 on FanDuel feels less necessary, but he's in the same mix. Dodgers bats, Mets bats. Sean Manaea on DraftKings at 65. Roki Sasaki on DraftKings at 73. And the real answer is neither of these starters on FanDuel, but if you had to, it's probably the cheaper Manaea. Chat quieted down a little bit. How's my driving? 527. We'll get there. 40 people watching. Hit the like button for me if you get a chance. That really does feed the algo. If you get an even more of a chance after the show, come on back, leave a comment. We'll start up a new contest next week. Contest went really well. Congrats again to Cujo, who took down the free month in the home run picks contest. But just come on back, leave a, hey, good job, bad job, whatever. You're an idiot, you're smart, whatever you want to tell me in a comment after the show. That really feeds the algorithm nicely. That's how some of the new folks have found us, I think, popping up in some people's for you and you might be interested in type of recommends. Blue Jays, 411 total going up against Patty Sandoval. Going the other direction, the Red Sox, 448 implied going up against Trey Yesovich, who, again, has been a little bit all over the map this season. 3.78 ERA, but a full run higher xFIP and Sierra probably the better indicators. Walking at 12.2% clip, striking out just 23.3%, but that comes with a 13.4% swinging strike rate that reflects some of the quality that we saw from this kid down the stretch last season and what his prospect pedigree actually is. 15 starts deep this year. He's been just okay. Last year, we just have 3 starts on the board. Found a 25.8% strikeout rate, 15.5% swinging strikes, 3.21 ERA, 3.23 xFIP, 3.87 Sierra. Was walking a few too many there. Didn't allow a home run in those 14 innings, and then was tremendous going into the postseason. Don't have the postseason stats handy, unfortunately. I thought there was like six outings on the board from the end of last year. So it was only 3 actual starts, but some additional fodder for consideration. You can also see how just ludicrously above average he can be. 107 rating by Stuff Plus, but all over the place. Can't locate, not really finding form this year. 9,100, I think this is a reasonable target. This is, right about here is a decent enough mean, and he does share some strikeout-based ceiling. But the fact that we haven't really seen him nail it with any kind of consistency this year, I think takes him down a peg compared to the other 9,000 plus pitchers on FanDuel. At 8,000 on DraftKings, I think he is usable. He's not quite reliable enough to call him like a true good mid-board option. I think he plays more with the value bin, the cheaper guys. So through that lens, he's like the most expensive guy on that list. But he's probably also not going to be owned by anybody out there. People are going to be getting to the Sox at a 4.48 implied total. And again, I think this is a quarter run too high. I really do. He finds any kind of his actual form, and this bloated Sox lineup is in trouble in a hurry. They've been overperforming. They really have. Blue Jays bats against Patty Sandoval. He's at 67-79, just 9 1/3 in 2 starts. Found some swinging strikes against and some strikeouts in those 2 outings against no walks. Got him in here somewhere. Where are you, Patty? I mentioned it earlier in the show, actually. 23 2/3 down on the farm over 8 starts, had a 3.42 ERA over that. Had allowed just 2 home runs over that stretch. It's just a handful of outings, most of them short outings as well. All were starts, but an inning and a third, 2 innings, some more like opener hybrid type of a role. I wouldn't expect anything more than 5 innings, even if he's going right. He went exactly 5 last time out while giving up 4 earned runs, struck out 5, walked 1, allowed a homer. That was to the Rays. 4 1/3 the start before that. So I think we're targeting 5 innings, which doesn't really bode well for the win equity here. Doesn't really bode well for the $6,700 value, even to suffice, let alone the quality start upside at 79 on FanDuel. So I think we're scratching Patty Sandoval for the most part. Blue Jays bats hit to a focus, low strikeout team. Good opportunity for them to attack Patrick Sandoval here with some of the righty quality that they bring to bear up at the top of this lineup. I already mentioned Davis Schneider at the dead min price being super interesting across both sites. As we look at the stacks board, they rank down the board 12th, 14th by points. Don't rate out well for Vegas total or for home run upside, but look where they are for points per dollar value. Second on FanDuel, first on DraftKings. So a little bit of life in the Blue Jays, bad as they've been throughout the season. You get a high average, high contact, low strikeout, no walk rate type hitter in Ernie Clement to set the table. Second base is where you want Ernie most of the time. Third base also works on FanDuel. Cheap price, 107 WRC plus. Not a lot to write home about in other categories. But he hits ahead of Vladdy Guerrero, who at 47, 3,000 looks awfully cheap. But this is the cheap version of Vladdy, undeniably at this point. 7% barrels, 43% hard hits, way down, 259, 340, 353. That's okay if you're Davis Schneider, but that's not Vladdy Guerrero. So ongoing problems there, but it is baked into the price. He is facing a very gettable lefty. I'm not sleeping on him if I'm going there, and he's still a reason. He's still part of the draw because you're getting him at just a raw, cheap price. He's $300 cheaper than Kaz Akamoto. $500 more on DraftKings is correct. Akamoto, a lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits, 22 homers on the season, inconsistent performer, a lot of strikeouts in his game, not characteristic of basically anybody else in this lineup, but they float him through that, and when he does connect with the long ball, he's driving guys in, or with the good bad at ball event, he's driving guys in, he's finding a lot of quality for extra base hits and home runs, 216 ISO, just a 318 xWOBA under the 326 actual reflects a little bit of the unreliable nature of the hitter, but a high priority bat if you're going to this team, and he fills third base for a fair price. George Springer in the outfield, 37-31. Okay. 10 home runs, 7 steals. It's been a disappointing year after the big resurgence last year. Not making great contact, nowhere near where he was last year. Low strikeout, heavy walk rate, still an okay option to throw at a medium grade type pitcher or a low end pitcher. Alejandro Kirk against the lefty, get some upside there, 2,900, 2,600. Just 3 home runs in 118 this year was much better than that last year. As mentioned, Davis Schneider against any lefty, or against a low-end lefty, absolutely. And at the mid-price in that spot, please. Makes a lot of premium contact, finds the long ball from time to time. 121 pretty bad plate appearances this year. There's no real reliability there. When we're looking at his better years, 13 home runs and 454 chances back in 2024, but that came with a 191, 282 front end of that slash line. 11 home runs and 227 chances last year, 234, 361 was a much better season as far as getting on base. Also had a 202 ISO, but if you look under the surface, 323 xWOBA under a 351 actual. So a lot of that, including the on base, was some overperformance. But he did do it. He is the dead min price, going up against the gettable lefty. So that makes him very interesting and a big component in that value equation. A lot of the on base comes through the aggressive walk rate, 15.9 last year, 15.7 this year. Don't of our show, just a mix and match piece here against the lefty. 7 home runs, 9 stolen bases, having a bad year. Luis Urias, I think from the right side, would be an interesting wild card down lineup. 2,400 on both sites. Second base on DraftKings is where you'd want him. Third base eligible, that's also fine on FanDuel. Pair of home runs on the board already in 36 plate appearances is exactly what I was looking to talk about. 212 ISO. The guy can put good wood on the ball, find some upside for the oddball home runs from the bottom of the lineup. That's where we've always found him. 8 home runs in 330 chances with a bad slash line last year, just an 84 WRC plus. Nothing in the weighted on base categories. Only 4 in 109 chances that year, just 3 in 177 in that season. Where was the good year? I thought I had one better year to scroll back to there. It might be hidden. Yep, it was one more year further back. 16 home runs in 472 chances back in 2022 and 23 in 570, a full season, the lone full season in his career as a 24-year-old back in 2021. So we're well removed from those seasons, and we're well removed from him being that player in that role. But that does still equal an upstart type of an opportunity at these prices and in that position for a home run ball. And again, he's done it twice already this year. Miles Straw, just a mixer for a little bit of bat on ball and speed, but a low quality bat on ball. On the Red Sox side, these overrated Red Sox, they're drawing too much from Vegas again, just like against Cobb Reddish the other night. We talked about that, talking about it again here. They're plenty playable. They come in at okay prices. They even rate out fine on the stacks board. 13th by points on FanDuel, a little better for 11th by points and 7th by point per dollar on DraftKings. 7th by Vegas total, but knocked down our board a little bit because they're facing a pitcher who I think is better than that, and I think Vegas is trying to hook some people against it. Anthony Siegler in the leadoff role, not much more than a mix and match dude. 245, 314, 383, a pair of home runs, pair of stolen bases, 324 xWOB under a 308 actual, 91 WRC plus. Even through this surge, what's he really done? Sedan Rafael has found the counting stats and found some consistency this year, undeniably. But it comes on an actual big downturn in the quality of his batted balls, while his strikeouts, his walks have remained basically identical. 281 xWOB under his 332 actual. What are we going to actually believe here? We're going to believe the outlier performances so far, or are we going to believe what we've seen from this player year after year over the last couple of years? I'm going to lean toward the latter. It's just an extended version of the hot stretches that we've seen from this guy. And he always comes back down to earth. Maybe he gets away with it and continues to do so through the season. And you're okay on price. You're paying a little FanDuel tax for what he's already done, but it's not out of hand. DraftKings, you're not really paying any tax. So it's perfectly fine to continue using him. He's a high priority bat within stacks, but he's completely miscast in the 2 spot, and he's not actually this guy. Willie Abreu, Wilson Contreras, absolutely exactly who they look like, if not even better than who they look like. Monsters for premium contact, fairly priced as the 2 highest priced players on this team. Top priority bats on this squad by a wide margin. Masataka Yoshida, fairly priced at $3,027. That's where you get some good value marks out of the Red Sox. Good line drives hitter who can cash those tickets if the guys in front of him are getting on base. There's quality in that, just the pure just driving in runs from a low strikeout, lower medium walks type of a hitter who can put the ball in play, find success for correlated scoring going down the lineup from him as well. But you're running into Caleb Durbin, who, had a hot streak for sure. 237, 300, 397. It's slowly starting to normalize his season. He's up to 10 homers, 11 steals, but still a 284 xWOB under a 306 actual. That is not a good player. 2.6% barrel, 28.4% hard hit. Maybe he becomes a decent enough slap hitter guy who can, chase 300 and get on base and be a correlated scoring piece. I don't believe in the power uptick. I think he's gotten lucky on a few fly balls that wouldn't have gotten out of a lot of parks if you look at the underlying numbers. It's not the breakout campaign that people think it is. It's not the breakout campaign people were calling for before he sucked for the first 3 months of the season. It's been one good month. I would not rely on it. Jaron Duran, Andrew Monasterio, and Connor Wong, all mix and match pieces. Duran, the most talented, but the lowest performer in that group down the bottom of the lineup. If you're going to Red Sox, any one of those guys is in your lineup, handful of times, and it's not problematic. Duran would be my highest priority still going up against Yasavage, because you're hoping that some of those lefties come through. And again, he's the best guy down there. He is finding the counting stats a little bit. It's just the consistency's been way off over 403 plate appearances now. Despite everything I said, it probably is Well, it's Red Sox bats for points, but it's easily Blue Jays bats for value. A little back and forth there. And then Trey Savage over Patty Sandoval. Don't really think he's entirely necessary on either site, though. More playable at the 8 on DraftKings for sure. Guys, quiet it up in chat. It was buzzy in there a little while ago. Astros, White Sox, solid totals, but the White Sox pulling away at 4-8-3, one of the more highly totaled teams on the slate. Monster power opportunity showing around Munetaka Murakami, Kosa Montgomery, Miguel Vargas is part of that as well. I really like the idea of the upside for the White Sox here. They're going up against Spencer Arrighetti. He's another guy walking way too many, 12.7%. You're just giving away opportunities. 4.34 ERA. To a degree, he's gotten away with it. He's had some competent starts through the year, but a 4.88 xFIP, 4.70 Sierra, just a 10.34 strikeout minus walk. Again, a nice, tidy little indicator. What he has not done a ton of this year is give up premium contact. Just 30.9% hard hits, 87.5 miles an hour of exit velo, but it comes on an extreme fly ball trajectory. There's been some confluence of well struck ball and launch angle that have equaled a fair amount of barrels, 7.8%, 3.18% home runs. Not terrible, not melting down by any means, but targetable enough with a team that's provided a bunch of home runs on the season. All 3 of those guys I mentioned are above 20 on the season. You've got some other guys in the lineup who in mixed samples have hit the ball pretty hard or found a lot of success for setting the table and then scoring runs for correlated scoring when the big batted ball events happen from the other guys. You've got some interesting value guys down lineup. A lot to like about the White Sox. Between the two, Davis Martin found a larger chunk of success overall this season. 3.31 ERA, 3.76 xFIP, 4.05 Sierra, 22% strikeout against 7.5% walks over 106 innings in 19 starts. Has really come back to earth in recent run, though. He's well below average across all the plus categories, which is concerning when we just evaluate the underlying pitcher and who he really is. He's been giving up the hard hits in the exit velo. This is really concerning, way above our threshold of 40%. This is, if we're rounding up, 90 miles an hour of exit velo, which is at our emergency threshold. It's on a fair enough fly ball trajectory that 1.36, probably a little lucky when it comes to the home run ball. Jordan Alvarez could change that in an awful hurry. He's the only Astros bat who's above the magic number at 10.49. You've got a couple other guys halfway or thereabouts. Christian Walker, 6.29. Isaac, Jose Altuve. A lot of mix and matchiness to this Astros lineup. But when Jordan clicks, when he's hitting 2 long balls, the mix and matchiness of some of these other guys matters a lot less. And a more than capable spot for him to do that tonight. Monster for premium contact barrels, chasing a triple crown. Absolutely outstanding, even at price. Nothing to dislike about Jordan Alvarez today. And you make up price, honestly, if you're stacking rather than looking at him as like a one-off bat. Because if you're stacking this team, you get the correlation. You get it for 4,500 on Jeremy Pena at shortstop. That's a more than competent enough bat to fill shortstop with. 302, 362, 472 this season, 9 homers, 8 steals. A lot of good fantasy days in there. Directly correlates with Jordan. And just putting those 2 guys in, brings it down decently. Same thing on FanDuel. And then once we start working with Isaac, Altuve, or if you want to get even cheaper, playable Lamont Wade. Let's just say we do that, and that is a 3-man. I brought it down to 46.67 a piece, 14,000 for the 3-man. And Lamont Wade is better than a $3,000 player, as is Jeremy Pena. And then you just get Jordan at price. Top slice the first 5. 43.60, 21.8 for the 5-man. I would maybe consider probably do want Paredes at 38 there. Lamont, like top 3. Skip Altuve at the higher price. Lamont goes into the outfield and get me to Christian Walker at 38. And it's similar, 21.6 across the 5, 43.20 total. But there's playability back and forth for, decent enough prices that you don't have to be concerned about the 65. And I think the 65 plays better within the stack price paradigm than it does standing out on its own. Good as Jordan Alvarez is, much as he could pay that off on his own. What's the ballpark like here for Paredes? One day we will have checked these so many times that I'll just have them all memorized. Today is not that day. Mouse died again. Contribute to the Mouse Fund. Kick in with a subscription over at rotoscouts.com. Your first week is free right now with promo code TRYME on a weekly. All one word, capital T, capital M. Monthly and quarterly plans are available as well. Under $1 a day at regular price for access to all 4 major sports. Isaac in this ballpark. Positive ballpark for his home runs. So he's on the board for the home run hitting upside. He's hit 14 on the season in ballparks like this where he can dunk the ball into the left field corner. He also gets on base a lot. He's an interesting player, low strikeout, puts the ball in play, beats it to first base, also capable of drawing a walk. Double-digit walk rates each of the last 3 years, down to 9.5. Not that that's bad this year. Jose Altuve is greatly diminished so far this season, but does have 12 home runs on the board. Up and down year with a little bit of quality at second base for the cheap pricing. Just another outfielder if you're putting him there on FanDuel, really. I'd probably prefer him at second base, but less playable than he's been in years past. Also not really ideally cast in the cleanup spot. Lamont Wade offers a little bit of upside for finding a barrel, finding some hard hits. Hasn't really done so this season. Didn't really do so in a mixed sample last year, but when we last saw him in full action, 9.4% barrel, 43.7% hard hit with aggressively good on base skills, a lot of walk in his game. That's an interesting player for those prices, going through either first base or the outfield, to be quite honest, from the left side as well. Walker, we talked about the uptick in strikeout that kind of tanked the bounce back season, but he does have 20 home runs on the board. Interesting for counting stats when we're talking about the 3 categories for run scoring and power. Lucas Spence and Christian Vasquez mix and match guys down lineup. And then the interesting guy down there is Cam Smith, always will be. 12 home runs, 10 stolen bases. He's taken the role of, who's now I've forgotten who I wanted to say. The dude who used to be at the bottom of the Astros lineup in the outfield all the time that we used to get cheap power from. The name Lance McCullers almost came out of my mouth, and that's obviously wrong. He's a pitcher. Damn it. Who the hell am I trying to think of? Somebody who's a long-time watcher will remember. Cam Smith's kind of filling that role where he's making really, really interesting contact and not finding any kind of results for it outside of the occasional home run. He also steals bases from time to time. We're expecting a lot more on base skill out of Cam Smith. If he ever finds that, this is going to be an interesting fantasy player, and any given slate upside, just to get him on base, steal a bag, and then make a good piece of contact makes him a really interesting $2,900, $2,700 investment in your outfield. On the White Sox side, the more desirable team. Again, the 3 power bats have all been just crushing baseballs. Murakami's total is a little lighter than it ought to be because of that chunk of missed time, just murdering the ball. He's the best power bat on this team over a smaller stretch. 20 home runs, nearly tied with what Vargas has done in nearly 200 more plate appearances, or 150 more. 21 home runs, 11 steals for him in a breakout campaign. He's been excellent this season. Fully priced, though, at 56 at 38 across multiple positions. Prefer him at third base. That's how you get him and Murakami anyway. You get Montgomery at shortstop. If you don't play Miguel Vargas, I do love the idea of Montgomery at third base. Get a better shortstop in, or another high-quality shortstop, I would say. So that's really interesting positioning on DraftKings. By the same token, you could skip Murakami, play Vargas and Montgomery together. But, and again, you could obviously get all 3 guys with the shortstop eligibility. It's just to talk about using Monty at third. The best way to use Monty at third would be to have him, Murakami, and you're forgoing Miguel Vargas. In that case, Sam Antonacci is a great piece for his correlated scoring ability, finding some bonus scoring across 330 plate appearances with a little bit of power, 7 home runs, 13 steals, but his game's really in the on base, 370 on base, hitting for good average, low strikeout, medium walk rate, putting a ton of balls in play, finding success with the speed. Love the upside for ongoing run scoring ahead of all the power bats. Benintendi, we've talked about a lot through the season. Not at all consistent, but 10 home runs and a lot of interesting contact on the board from a cheap lefty bat to throw at a vulnerable righty for fly balls. And if we're just looking for well-struck fly balls, it's the name of what Andrew Benintendi's doing right now. Name of his game. Braden Montgomery at 31. A few interesting batted ball events, low strikeout, medium walk rate so far, 3 home runs. Okay for some run scoring in a small sample, 141 plate appearances, already scored 20, driven in 18. That's not bad. 96 WRC plus. Got to watch where it goes, but an interesting switch hitter who'll get opportunity from the left side. Tristan Peters has found a ton of success this year. Great slash line, only 6 home runs, 5 steals in 299 plate appearances, doesn't hit the ball all that hard, but succeeds on a lot of balls in play. 18% strikeout, 6.7% walk rate. That's an interesting guy to start considering some wraparound action from the bottom, as is Chase Meidroth at a higher price. Second base only on DraftKings, multi-position on FanDuel. Incredibly useful, 347 on base. So again, when we're thinking about a wraparound guy, just putting him ahead of Sam Antonacci or instead of Sam Antonacci and bringing him into the power bats from the 8 spot, you can get there. That's not a bad opportunity from down there, and he'll be way lower than even Antonacci at the top of the lineup will. So as a reasonable alternative, different position over here, you can get him at the same spot over here, but I like Meidroth at second base the most. Drew Romo, mix and match quality catcher, does have 5 home runs in a short stint of plate appearances. White Sox bats, Astros bats, Davis Martin, Spencer Arrighetti. Chas McCormick. Thank you, Cubs. No, Brantley's a good guess, though, Reg Kell. Jake Myers was also a good guess. No, it wasn't either of those guys. It was Chas McCormick. I knew Cubs would nail it if he was here. Clintwood's going to the Ranger game. Love it. Build a line for or against my Texas team. Why don't you use your pitcher at a nice cheap value price? We're actually on that game. How about that? Did you have that saved, ready to punch in here, Clintwood, when we landed here? I would say, yeah, maybe consider using your team's pitcher. 8,400, he was coming up a ton for me on in my FanDuel builds, and I suspect being very similarly priced on a similarly priced board on DraftKings that he's going to come up a lot over there. He's striking out 25.7% over 110 and 2/3 in his I covered it up by accident. 21 starts on the season. As mentioned, he's been all over the place. 4.80 ERA, but a 3.95 xFIP, and even better, 3.89 Sierra. Strikeout minus walk is just okay, but the strikeout rate is perfectly fine. The elevated to 8.8% walk rate, higher than we would want it, and leading to a 1.28 whip, but not completely disastrous. He's given up a little bit in terms of a near 90-mile-an-hour exit velocity, 44.1% hard hit on a fly ball trajectory, a lot of barrels. Hasn't gotten burnt by the home run ball. Figure it out. Pitcher-friendly ballpark, gettable Mariner squad, sub-4 implied total. I think that's a good idea if you want to get to the game you're going to, and I think it's a good idea for those of us not going to the game. I think we're going to end up with some Mackenzie Gore in our lives. Again, obviously unreliable this year, but shares upside with the top of the board, and he's cheaper than those guys by a pretty wide margin. He's right there, not dissimilar at all from, even Shane O'Mac there. McClanahan's closer to these guys than he is those two guys, but I was giving him credit for being on that tier. But Gore is just as good as any of the options in this next tier, if not the best option in that tier of, say, that group of guys. I'd probably rather target Seattle with Mackenzie Gore than Tampa Bay with Joey Cantillo at similar run totals for both those teams. So, yeah, I think that might be your angle, Clintwood. If you're talking about your team's bats, you're facing pretty damn good pitcher in Bryce Miller. 63 and a third over his 10 starts, 29.5%. Strikeout 4.1% walk, nearly a 14% strikeout rate, swinging strike rate, 25.31 strikeout minus walk, 2.27 ERA, 3.11 xFIP. Those are pretty real numbers. So it was around a 3-run type pitcher, a 0.88 whip on the season. He's just been outstanding. He does allow fly balls. He does allow home runs. So what I would say is maybe, and he came up earlier in the comparison, I forget who asked, but maybe if you want to try and take a shot at picking off a home run from a guy like Jock Peterson from the left side, that would be your other angle. Or maybe it's, Mackenzie Gore and Jock to get a couple pieces of it. Again, for Clintwood, who's going to the game. The rest of us, I think you could use one-offs around those guys, but you don't have to. There's nothing really drawing me to think that Jock Peterson's in a great spot here against a pitcher who's pretty likely to strike him out. But that would be the other angle that maybe I would play, would be like a one-off around one of these 8 or 9 ranked home run balls. But not a lot there for the Rangers at that 3.71 implied total. Not a lot there for the Mariners at 3.88. As I said earlier in the show, I'd probably rather use Mariners bats if I was forced to stack one of these teams to target Mackenzie Gore than use Rangers bats against Bryce Miller. Looking at that, and again, Miller, incredibly playable, top projected pitcher on the slate, 10,000, 10-5. Rangers been a target in home games for us throughout the season. So, sorry, Clintwood, I think your boys are going to lose like a 3-0 game tonight. Looking at the Mariners bats through that lens, 4,935 for Randy Arozarena, the most highly priced Mariners player, but it's gotten a fair 141 WRC plus, 352 XWOB, but he's been tremendous, getting on base at a great clip, hitting the ball hard when he needs to, 11 homers, 19 steals, just absolutely fantastic in the outfield. Throwing him at a lefty also helps there. Julio Rodriguez is just 44-31, 15 homers, 12 stolen bases, starting to turn the slash line around, hopefully starting to find a little bit more consistency of premium contact. He's been good, not great, and we're expecting great for the last 2 months. Let's hope. Dom Canzone in the lineup as expected, but no Luke Raley against the lefty. But Dom Canzone's been hitting the ball very hard all season, getting no credit for it in his pricing on either site. 15 homers, all those barrels, all those hard hits. He's 3,500. He's 2,800. That's an interesting player even against the lefty. He's just been doing everything right this season, including finding success against left-handed pitching. Cal Raleigh at 38-28, 10 home runs, a lot of inconsistency, ton of zeros from Cal this year. He's drawing a 12.5% walk rate that draws the eye against all the bad. 11.2% barrels is still good in a vacuum, but it's down 8 and change percentage points for him. And more concerning, 49.6% hard hits all the way down to 32% so far this year. It's time to get it in gear, Cal. He hit a big grand slam when they walked the player to load the bases ahead of him the other day. Josh Naylor needs to get it together too. He's another player having an okay season, 261, 323, 359. If I told you that was 21 steals, 8 home runs, if I told you that was Jake Cronenworth over 413 plate appearances, you'd be like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. Josh Naylor, those numbers are off a little bit, particularly the home run pace. He's better than that. Ballpark works against him in their home park. This park will work against him a little bit as well, but that's a very playable piece at 36,300 if we're going to the Mariners, and he's part of the justification for going to that team if you do. But again, this is not a high priority team on this board. Cole Young, Mitch Garver, Weston Wilson, all mix and match guys down the bottom. And then lefty for Colt Emerson, much as I like his lurking power upside from down there in some spots. I don't love it against Mackenzie Gore, even with Gore giving up a fair amount of premium contact. He really hasn't given up many long balls on the season. If we're going to the Rangers, again, it's around a couple of the power bats that would justify the upside there. Miller's been outstanding despite allowing a little bit of home run upside. Most of that comes on incidental contact on fly balls, though. It's not, 29.6% hard hit, 86.4 miles an hour of exit velo kind of speaks for itself. So some fly balls have managed to carry out of the stadium, but it's not because on the average they're well struck. Jock Peterson would be one of the guys I would consider for that one-off home run at 32, at 28. He's awfully cheap, and he's a guy who can turn a lazy fly ball into a home run on any given slate. Wyatt Langford's another guy, 11 home runs in a short sample this year, 22 of home runs, 22 stolen bases last year. Ezekiel Duran, just a mix-and-match infielder, not in a great spot going up against Miller. Brendan Nimmo would have some power upside from the left side for sure. He's hit 10 on the season, but more importantly, 12.4% barrel, 51.9% hard hit. Those things obviously matter for doubles as well, so you can get a little quality out of Brendan Nimmo whether he goes deep or not. He would be a big part of stacking any kind of Rangers, and he'd be in that mix of guys, even though he's a little bit lighter in the home run category. He'd be in that mix of guys if you're considering one-offs from this team. Evan Carter, more a line drive lefty and not really finding the success this year. You can easily work your way around Evan Carter, even if you're going to this team. That said, just another outfielder type quality when it comes down to what his talent actually should end up looking like. He's playable, but only if you're already going to 3 or 4 other bats from this team. Jake Berger at 33-28, inoffensively priced, 17 home runs, a lot of premium contact from the right side of the plate. Not a great spot for him, but one of the more playable guys from this team if you do find yourself there. Nicky Lopez, Elias Diaz, Cam Cauley down lineup, all probably overmatched here. Nicky's found a little bit of batting average, a little bit of on base in a small sample this year. It's unlikely to last. Just a slap hitter, if not, even if it does last. Diaz, a mix and match catcher. Cam Cauley finding a little success early for some on base, for some success on batted balls. Also has a home run. Hasn't stolen a base yet. More of a hit tool and speed oriented player when it's all said and done. Bryce, McKenzie, Mariners, Rangers. Pitching much, much more important in this game than bats are. Enjoy the game, Clintwood. A's 4.45 implied going up against the Twins at a 5.16. Twins looking like a standout spot given that total. But again, we take a half run off that run total, which I think would be fair given how Jacob Lopez is a little bit better than he's been this year. That dips to a 4.89 that's immediately competitive with all these teams and right in the mix. And when we look at it the reason for doing that would be to give Lopez a little bit of credit for what we saw from him last year. Been a disaster this year. It doesn't make the Twins stand out nearly as much. And then we start talking man for man through this stack. Yeah, we get Byron Buxton. That's outstanding. Monster in the home run model at 13.84. He's 6,000. He's 3,600. Perfectly fine. 25 home runs. Terrific year when he's been available. Over 347 plate appearances deep. Okay. So then we get Austin Martin in the leadoff role. All right, he's getting on at a 351 clip, providing some correlated scoring upside, but not a ton of individual quality. Doesn't particularly hit the ball hard. Doesn't strike out that much. Draws a fair amount of walks. Definitely can draw walks against Jacob Lopez this year, and he's not finding the Ks like he did last year. So, okay, Austin Martin's in the mix. Helps cheapen up Byron Buxton. Ryan Jeffers against the lefty? Sure. I'm on board. 9 home runs and 176 plate appearances with a great slash line. I buy it. Josh Bell, he's cheap. He's driven in a bunch of runs. He's even found 13 home runs. He rates out okay in the home run model. Average type projection. They're just talking about a cheap price. Everybody and their brother who goes to the Twins is going to be playing those top 4 hitters. People aren't rushing to get Royce Lewis into their lineup. 10 home runs, terrible slash line, and 282 opportunities. They probably should be. 12.2% barrel is the interesting part of Royce Lewis. That's what we're looking to have collide with, well, not any of this, but collide with that launch angle and equal those home runs. But again, the power that Lopez has allowed this year has been incidental. The realistic power target is more Zebby Matthews on the other side. Lopez is allowing a 4.6% barrel, 31.4% hard hits, 85.2 miles an hour of exit velo. I'm going to take a moment to actually look it up. Two. It's been kind of a tie. Some of the home runs have come on the road. Some of the home runs have come in the home ballpark. I wanted to blame it on the park, but I won't. But it is just a weird outlier for balls getting over the wall on the aggressive fly ball rate rather than, again, that they're well struck. This is not an argument to be making that I'm making to get Jacob Lopez on the mound, although the $6,000 price has a bent appeal through a value lens. But it is kind of an argument a little bit against the Twins. I don't want to take much away. Don't get me wrong. They ranked 3rd by points on FanDuel, 4th by points on DraftKings, 5th by value on both, 6th by home runs. But they're the number 1 Vegas total and the only team above 5. So I expect that around the industry, they're slightly more favorable looking, and people are going to rush to get them. And they're going to rush to get those 4 hitters. Royce Lewis, no secret, but again, he will be lower owned. He fits in at 3rd base on both sites for a cheap price and has very realistic power upside. Victor Caratini, probably going to be a little bit more lightly owned than he should be, but I think maybe he picks up some opportunities as the 5th man in with those guys, at least on DK for a catcher spot. 3,600, that's a catcher that has hit for power over the years, 7 home runs, light power. A guy who can give you any given slate upside for a big batted ball event that gets out. 7.4% barrel, 40% hard hit last year, 5.6, 43.1, 5.0, 44.7. Totaled out to a dozen home runs in 386 last year, 8 in 274 the year before. Quality average as well to go with that. So a guy who doesn't necessarily need to hit the home run to succeed, but his best days are when he homers. Luke Keeschel, Brooks Lee, Ryan Kreidler going down the lineup. More mixed and matchy. Out of that group, Brooks Lee's probably the most interesting. 15 home runs that were probably mostly an illusion earlier in the year. He doesn't particularly hit the ball hard. Just want to see when. He hit 1 home run since June 26th. So basically 1 home run in the last month. Had a big June. 8 of those home runs came in June. Or excuse me, 2 of them. Actually, 6 of them came in June. 2 of them came on May 31st. So little hot streak reflected there. in terms of the power number for Brooks Lee, but he's got a good hit tool. Low strikeout, medium walk rate. So a guy who should find more success, it'll flip a little bit, and he'll find more success for average on base via the hit tool than he will for power. But he's a playable piece from down lineup, 104 WRC plus on the season. Some of what I just said reflected by the 275 xWOB against the 321 actual. And then Creedler, just a mix and match guy at the bottom. On the A side, I almost ended the game. 68 for Zebby, 85. I would say Zebby as fair a bargain bin play as anybody else on that spot, but he's just had problems with the long ball, problems with power. Another guy above a 5% home run rate, just problematic. Comes on a 12.5% barrel rate, 15.4 degree average launch, 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo. So again, look at these numbers compared to these and tell me who's the true threat to give up the long ball today. So it leads us into some of these cheap A's, some of these interesting A's that are probably going to be under-owned. By comparison, their total's a little bit lacking, and their home run marks are really not. Soderstrom and Langoliers easily way above the magic number, 16 and 23 homers, both double-digit barrel rates, mid-40s hard hit rates. Jacob Wilson's an excellent hit tool option in the leadoff spot for correlated scoring, strikes out at an 11.3% rate. Zebby's only striking out 19.5% of opposing hitters this season. He's got more talent than his numbers this year. His xFIP is a full run lower than the ERA. That's been pushed way up by the home runs. But that's been all in the mix for him regularly throughout the season. So a guy like Wilson can succeed in multiple directions against a pitcher like this. Carlos Cortez found a bunch of success early. Was barreling the ball regularly, hitting it hard regularly. That slipped a little bit. But he might claw some of that back, get to around where he was in a mixed sample last year. And he's been low strikeout, medium walk. He's been pretty interesting. Over 245 plate appearances, solid slash, good average, good on base, 7 home runs on the board, a 119 WRC plus. xWOBA says that he can keep up around where he's been. So that's an interesting guy at those prices. Lefty bat to mix in against the vulnerable pitcher to contact. Donovan Walton, more mix and matchy, but another lefty bat to work in. 304, 377, 500 with 3 home runs and 115 plate appearances. A lot of success. Another low strikeout, medium walk rate guy so far this year. A little reflection of that in a small sample last year. But another guy kind of lacking in terms of the actual numbers for premium contact so far. Tommy White, also a little bit lacking so far in premium contact. Might have a little bit more lurking upside for it, though. First and third base, awfully cheap, 8.11 in the home run model. 21 plate appearances deep. We can't really count on anything yet. Jeff McNeil, just a line drive hitter, maybe find success on batted balls, but you don't really want to go there. I'd prefer Lawrence Butler at a higher price or Henry Bolte at a higher price. Two guys with 2020 type skill sets, whether or not either of them gets anywhere near it. Obviously, this year they're not getting there. Lawrence Butler's been there in the past. Bolte probably gets there in a couple seasons through his career. Twins bats, A's bats. Zebby, Lopez. It's really only DraftKings plays for value. Neither guy high priority by any stretch of the imagination. Both guys loosely throwable darts in very bad spots. Probably pretty likely to fail you. 2 to go. We've referred to this one a few times through the show. Morgan Wiper knew Brooks Lee just hit a bomb versus Cleveland. Slate Ciccone, don't ask me why I know. Yeah, that was the, I guess that was the game on the 20th. Or excuse me, the 22nd. Yeah, that was just recently. That was the first one he hit in a month. So looking at the Reds, I mean, Ellie De La Cruz, Sal Stewart, as good as he's been, JJ Bleday, an underperforming but still very, very good and awfully hard-hitting Joanio Suarez. The best version of Nathaniel Lowe that we've seen in a while. Pretty good Spencer Steer. Tyler Stevenson, a cheap catcher with a ton of thunder in the bat that we love getting to. 6 guys in this Reds lineup carrying double-digit barrel rates. Another one at 9.9. That's JJ Bleday, the guy who's got 17 home runs and only 308 plate appearances. They're only coming in at that total against Dustin May. He hasn't allowed a lot of homers, but he's allowing the occasional fly ball. Hasn't collided on a good launch angle with a well-struck ball, but well-struck balls are plenty. 45.2% hard hit rate, just under 90 miles an hour of exit velo. I would consider him pretty lucky to be at 169. That feels half as much as it ought to be. 3+ seems about right. Ground ball focused pitcher, no doubt. But last year, on similar levels of contact, outside of happenstance, the convergence of the well-struck ball on the angle that creates the barrel, right? That's the only thing different, is the convergence of those events. 12.5 degree average launch, 11.5, same thing. 45.2, 44.5, same thing. 89.9, 90.6, similar enough. What did I say? Double? 3.60 last year. Double. It's 23 starts, 132 innings, fair sample. He's striking out a few more year over year. He's walking a few less. Swinging strikes are up somewhat. 4.78 ERA, but a 3.91 xFIP. 4.0 SIERA is improved upon last year. He's getting his form back. He's finding it and has been very, very good in a couple spots. As mentioned, a one-hit complete game shutout, but that kind of derailed his season. He's been making short starts and has been mostly a disaster since that start. Just more fuel on the fire for considering some likely very low-owned Reds bats. Poor hitting conditions in St. Louis today. Plays in both directions. Cards getting a bigger piece of the total at 4.41 implied against Rhett Lauder, the lower end of the two pitchers. Definitely believe more in the Cardinals bats for success today than the Reds, but I don't think the Reds are getting quite a fair shake here. And that makes them interesting for DFS with all this success. Multi-category contributors in both Ellie and Sal Stewart up at the top of the board. Tons of lefty power in JJ Bleday to throw at that contact that Dustin May is allowing. Again, Joanio, way off the market, 32.1% hard hits. The barrels are down in his broken up sample on the season. But even with all the struggles, he does have 13 long balls and 286 plate appearances. It's not a terrible total. 193 ISO. Just needs to find the form again, find the consistency, bring the strikeouts down. Lowe's made great contact. He's still awfully cheap at 3,300, 2,700. He's got 12 home runs and 239 plate appearances. Finding the quality, 230 ISO, 346 weighted on base with a matching 347 xWOBA, 113 WRC plus. It's been really, really good. We've seen him, as I've said before, do each of the, finding some batting average, finding some on base, finding a little bit of power outburst, finding some good contact. We've even seen two of those things happen. But he's actually mashed all three things together pretty effectively this season. He's become interesting, and the prices have not budged. Steer, good contact, 16 home runs, the ability to steal a base from time to time when he gets on. It's a good player at those prices, at those positions. I don't mind him in the outfield. I would take him at first base, but I absolutely love him if I'm going to this team at second base for 31. As mentioned, Stevenson, 11.3% barrels, 45.8% hard hits. People just absolutely sleep on this player. 2,800 a catcher, mandatory catcher spot. If I'm building lineups on DK, I'm going to that so often as a one-off catcher and saving money at that spot when I'm stacking other teams. 8 home runs and 272 plate appearances this year. Okay enough slash line. He can contribute in other ways. 344 xWOBA under the surface, saying he's got a lot more to give us. Last year, 13 home runs and 342. Okay slash line, wasn't nearly as good through the weighted on base, through the run creation categories. 19 home runs with a 338 on base, a 112 WRC plus in his best year back in 2024. It's a very, very capable catcher at a great price at 28. I would play him on FanDuel at 27 and pretend he's Nathaniel Lowe. Just pretend he's their first baseman, same price. That is an equally good, if not better option, because I actually believe in his power being a little bit more real than the power we've seen out of Lowe. The lefty-righty thing maybe breaks the tie, though. Dane Myers, good line drive bat, 267, 370, 389. Also very, very fast. 6 stolen bases. Should probably be higher given that on base skill that he's been demonstrating. It's an interesting wraparound guy from the bottom. And then Edwin Arroyo, not really giving us the quality that we wanted when he got called up. Also not been bad. Plays tremendous defense, so he's been in the lineup a lot. Good mixer, and eventually the skills are going to arrive. This kid with a little bit of believable power and a lot of believable speed. So once he catches up, it's going to be interesting. On the card side, again, the more interesting of the two teams when it comes to stacking for DFS purposes. JJ Weatherholt, tremendous 15 homers, 10 stolen bases, getting on at a 352 clip, 113 WRC plus. Jordan Walker, just our guy, our home run king. 22 home runs on the season, 14 stolen bases, a home run derby crown, 14.1% barrels, 50.5% hard hits. Kid's just outstanding. All of this is very, very real. 4,500, 3,300 is cheap for Alec Burleson given what he's done on the year. 15 homers, a great slash line, 124 WRC plus. With more to give, I'll add 383 xWOBA underlying that 352 actual. That's really interesting. Low strikeout, medium walk rate, a lot of well-struck balls in play. That is a very good player. Ivan Herrera, another really underrated catcher. 4,000. Cheap. 11 home runs. Excellent for on-base skills. 366 on base. He scored 62 times on the season. Plays every day. 451 plate appearances. That's an ideal catcher on DraftKings. Lars Nootbaar at 35. Decent piece in the outfield. Getting on base regularly. The power's been a little bit light, but he's been hitting the ball consistently hard. 9.5% barrel, 50.5% hard hit. Another high-quality lefty to throw at Rhett Lauder. Not a bad option. 29, 35, cheap for a guy with his quality. Mason Wynn, Nathan Church, mix and match pieces. Jimmy Crooks, a backup catcher. 3 home runs on the board. That is a high pedigree catcher who's been making good contact over his 83 plate appearances. It's downright interesting for premium contact from the left side. So don't sleep on Jimmy Crooks. If you can't get Ivan in your lineup, that's a reasonable alternative. It's also a reasonable, very, very cheap one-off catcher to keep in mind. And then Blaze Jordan, one of the more interesting guys in the lineup. 242, 255, 358. Not finding the results. 6% barrel, not where we want it. This is the guy we're looking for the big loud batted ball events from. But an interesting 44% hard hit rate. And that 44% comes with a low 14.7% strikeout rate across his first 102 plate appearances in the show. That is very much an ongoing attribute that he demonstrated at every single level of the minor leagues throughout his ascendancy. 2.9% walk rate. What do those two things equal, guys? Balls in play. And well-struck balls in play. This kid is going to be interesting. Right now, some up and down performances, 1 home run on the board, but there is monster power lurking in there, and that's a kid who knows how to put the wood on the ball. So don't dislike it at 22 if you're going to this team. Don't dislike it at 28. Fills third base in a nice way. They're a mid-board type team. Right, 15-15 on FanDuel, a little better looking on DraftKings, 11th and 8th, 10th ranked by home runs, 10th ranked by Vegas total. That's a solid ambush team on the slate today. And Blaze Jordan would be a part of that. He's going to be slept on ownership-wise at those cheap prices. Cards bats. Yeah, the slate's deep enough. Cards bats, Reds bats, Dustin May. Rhett Lauder is not really a big time piece here. May much more usable than that might have made him sound. Again, right in the middle of the board. But given the offset from the top of the board and all the usability on a lot of those guys, I'm comfy saying that even at that low total, I think it's too low, that the Reds are interesting here and more interesting maybe than a struggling Dustin May. Fair enough? Fair enough. Last game up. Let's see if we got these last 2 lineups in. When I hit the lineup button, if you haven't already, hit the like button for me. Little thumbs up right around here on your YouTube screen. So scroll down, hit that little like button. If you feel it, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribe to the channel, join the community here. Also scroll down into the description down there. Free Discord link is in there somewhere. Come join the community and Discord hangout. If you don't subscribe to the channel, don't subscribe to the website, anything, you can always just come be with the community, have some laughs, talk shop, ask questions in Discord. I don't keep track of who's a subscriber and who's not. I'll happily answer anything you got in there. Give away projections all the time in there. Give away thoughts all the time in there. Or scams, depending on how you look at it. The Angels coming in with a sub-4 implied total. They're going up against Logan Webb, one of the top pitchers on the board, one of the very best pitchers in baseball when he's going right. 3.87 ERA, 3.77 xFIP on the season, a 4.01 SIERA. A little bit problematic. The strikeouts are down. Walks are perfectly fine. Launch angle's at 7 degrees. That's slightly elevated for him, but it's still tremendous. Tons and tons of ground balls. One of the best inducers of the ground ball, weak and medium contact in the league. One of the best home run limiters in the league. Love the spot for Logan Webb to find some quality here against this free swinging Angels team that should feed him a few additional strikeouts. 24.7% rate for this still projected version of the lineup. They don't really draw the walk, so that won't be too much of a problem outside of Mike Trout. You do have Mike Trout to contend with, but even he comes into this game at 5.44 in the home run model. Zach Neto at 5.12, also on the trade block. We'll see what this Angels team looks like in another week or two. I don't really like them or the idea of any of that equaling them having an outburst for runs today. Really limiting for this team to take the home run ball away from them. They don't do a lot else well. So love the upside for Webb, not so much on the Angels side. And it's the complete opposite going the other way. Love the upside for the Giants, not so much on Grayson Rodriguez. 16.1% strikeout, 10.1% walk. It's really this year for Grayson Rodriguez just about finding some innings and being healthy and on a major league mound. None of these numbers matter in the long term, but they're all completely awful, and they matter for us quite a bit right now because we want to get to maybe some Elliot Ramos again, maybe some Rafi Devers, certainly some Bryce Eldridge, the big lefty bats in this lineup. Maybe everybody's going to be sleeping on Willy Adames further down the lineup in the late night hammer, and we won't be. 18 home runs on the year for Willie. 9.5% barrel, 40.2% hard hit going up against a nothing pitcher. It's a really interesting shortstop. We'll get there in a minute. Top of the Angels with Neto at 44, at 36. Those are fair prices. He's hit 19 home runs, stolen 13. Didn't mean to delete that. Stolen 13 bases on the season. Hitting the ball consistently hard. Just lacking in terms of the slash line against expectation, but also has a 307 xWOB under the 336 that kind of puts that in perspective and tells us that that's actually pretty correct. 114 WRC plus in spite of that. Excellent option at short. Trout is Trout, 5,3600. If anybody in this lineup is going to find the long ball against Logan Webb or find a couple singles, a run scoring double, and some quality, it's Mike Trout. Nolan Shaniel's here for correlated scoring and get on base at a good clip, 354 on base. They ought to flip these two in this lineup. Jorge Soler, 3,300, 2,900, 11 home runs. No real consistency to speak of anymore. Knows how to hit the long ball, but more likely going to be striking out, 32.7 on the year, or just drilling the ball into the ground and making it out. Vaughn Grissom, 3,000, 2,900. Adequate slash line on the season, but nothing special. Certainly no reason to attack Logan Webb with him. Joey Adele would be a big part of my plans if I'm stuck on this team, but I'm not stuck on this team today. 3,500, 3,000, 15 home runs. Very, very real raw power, but the consistency is utterly lacking this year. He's not putting good wood on the ball. 8.3% barrel, down hard from 17.2 last year. Where have you got Joe Adele? Ozzy Peraza was kind of interesting early in the season. I know it's Oswald Peraza. I like calling him Ozzy Peraza because he's a known guy for me, and he's a guy that I picked up off waivers approximately 10 different times earlier in the season across 10 different weeks in the Dynasty League. Not currently on the team, but he was a useful piece early. He's fallen apart, though. 240, 284, 373. The same home runs is the same 7 home runs he had earlier in the year. 12 stolen bases. It was nice for a minute. Reclamation project, but it didn't last. Josh Lowe, Logan O'Hoppe. O'Hoppe having an underperforming year. Just 4 home runs, terrible slash line. Does have a double-digit barrel rate, but again, we're not attacking Logan Webb, and certainly not with a righty bat for home run upside. The Giants. 2 guys chasing a batting title in Luis Arias and Young-Hoo Lee. 320, 302 averages. Arias kind of pulling away in that competition. 359, 335 on base. Those guys contribute a lot of the same things from the 1 spot and the 6 spot with all the interesting power bats, except for Willy Adames, coming in between. Arias benefits from that and having more guys trying to drive him in when he gets on base than Young-Hoo Lee does. Slight benefit to that, slight benefit to Arias for the spot in the lineup and the slightly better average, finding a little bit more success. Also, among 2 guys that are sub 10% strikeout, he's half again as high a strikeout rate, 4.2 compared to the 9.8 at which Young-Hoo Lee strikes out. 5.9, 4.0% walk rates. Neither guy draws walks. It's just about the balls in play. Both guys find a lot of success, but I'll take the Luis Arias shot unless I'm making a point of getting to Willy Adames, in which case, especially if it's a 3-man build, I want Young-Hoo Lee there, not Luis Arias, because I want the direct correlation with Willie, the guy who's likely to be on base after one of these guys clears the bases. Guy who's likely to reset the table. Give me that in more lineups than not when I do get to Willy Adames. Make sense? So if I see Willie in there without Young-Hoo Lee and Arias is in it, I might look to switch it, depending on how many of these guys through the middle I have, obviously. Elliot Ramos at 44, at 29, more to the point on FanDuel. 15.8% barrels, 50.8% hard hits, 9 home runs in 260 plate appearances. Kid is good. He's a real masher of baseballs when he's in the lineup. Not consistent at all, but people don't seem to play him as much, and he's not all that expensive. Speaking of not expensive, it's ludicrous that he's at an inexpensive 4,400 and Bryce Eldridge is at 39. I explain it away in my head that they're just pricing him down because of the positional conflict with an inexpensive Rafi Devers, but that can't really be what they do all season with this kid. 12.8% barrel, 55% hard hit, over 243 plate appearances now. 10 home runs, 265, 358, 469, 204 ISO, 130 WRC plus. He's the best bat on this team now. Apologies to Rafi Devers, who's actually the best bat on this team, but you get me. That's a silly price point when you just take him away from the idea of having Rafi Devers at the same position. And Rafi's underpriced at 43. That's 1,000 too cheap for this year's version of Rafi Devers. 242, 312, 468. He's hit 20 home runs, driven in and scored 50 or more runs. 226 ISO, 112 WRC plus. I don't get it. Casey Schmidt finding the barrel, finding consistent hard hit, 20 home runs, 273, 303, 484. Not finding the odd base, but maybe does push that through stretches where he's just putting the ball in play and well-struck balls at that so frequently that it's going to equal base hits and extra base hits. So that's another very interesting bat at price. Third base on DraftKings, 4 positions on FanDuel, ideal. As mentioned, Willie, tremendous opportunity for big batted ball events, 18 home runs. Lack of consistency. People don't like him because he puts zeros in your lineup. That makes him more interesting because he's lower owned and at a good price. Drew Gilbert, Drew Kavanaugh, and the Drews are skippable at the bottom of the lineup, 84 and 81 WRC plus. Never a fun way to round out the show, but here we are. 624. I was shooting for 615. Went a little over. That was a fun one to talk through, you guys. Did a lot of talking. A lot of the lineups have been up on the site. Got to get a few more updated real quick. Thank you, Clintwood. Clintwood said thanks. That was like 45 minutes ago. Quality Souls home run pick of the day is Joanio Suarez. Mine probably a little chalkier with Kyle Stowers. I like both those guys quite a bit, though. Love the idea of the Marlins today. We talked through that lineup. We talked through all these different spots. Bryce Miller, Logan Webb, kind of different. A little bit separation at the top of the board. McClanahan believably in there with them and shares some ceiling. Big downtick from everybody else. Mackenzie Gore, really interesting for value in the middle of the board. Dustin May, kind of a wild card. Sasaki, kind of a wild card at that 73 on DraftKings. That could cause a little bit of havoc if the Mets don't come through. But I'm kind of intrigued by the Mets and all the power that we're seeing out of them against his 5+% home run rate. And all the other things I said through the show. Rewind, play it on like 12 times speed if you get a chance. You might be able to catch it before lock hits. With that in mind, you guys, let me get out of here. Let me get the site updated. Keep an eye on that. Should just take 2-3 minutes or so. Everything's in. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Have great weekends as well. We'll be back on Monday for more. Subscribe to the website. Promo code TRYME gets you a free first week on a weekly anytime. 100% for free. No commitment required. Cancel anytime before it renews at regular price, which is under $7 for the next week. All 4 major sports in play all the time for that same buy-in at rotoscouts.com. So give it a look. We will see you guys back here on Monday for what's probably going to be a bananas, chaotic, gigantic Monday slate on us again. Fun week of baseball, guys. It's been a blast. See you later. Have great weekends. Adios.